In our past lives, my sister married a merman whose wealth rivaled nations. I wedded a penniless merfolk, yet unexpectedly, the merman proved cold-blooded and cruel. My sister's marriage became miserable, while my gentle merfolk rose to stardom. Our love story became the envy of the world. Consumed by jealousy, my sister murdered me. After rebirth, my sister rushed to rescue that stranded mermaid. She gloated, "Sister, it's my turn to enjoy the mermaid's tender affection. Since merfolk are cold-blooded by nature, you'll die alone." I nearly burst out laughing when I heard this. Everyone knows mermaids are filthy rich. I've always dreamed of living that lavish lifestyle, endless wealth, zero responsibilities, and a husband who might as well be dead for all I care. As for that merman, pure trouble. In the dead of night, his shimmering tail coiled around me, that aristocratic voice, cool as moonlight, dripped with possessive hunger. "Shira, shall we continue?" Tears welled up in the corners of my eyes. Aren't mermaids supposed to be cold-blooded? 1. You're just a lowly merman. How dare you reject my advances? In a quiet alley, a handsome merman was being beaten by a group of people. His face was being trampled on the ground by a spoiled girl, his wounds mixed with dirty mud, looking utterly pathetic. I happened to be passing by the alley entrance, and when the merman saw me, it was as if he had seen his savior. He broke free from their grasp with almost all his might, throwing himself in front of me. "Please, save me." The girl caught up to him. "Are you sure you want to get involved?" I smiled faintly. "Go on." The merman's face was filled with disappointment, even a hint of resentment in his eyes. I find it laughable. In my past life, I saved Siren, wrote songs for him, and helped transform him from an obscure, down-and-out merman into a beloved superstar. He crafted this devoted lover persona publicly, constantly professing his gratitude toward me, but I later discovered by chance that he'd been secretly involved with Fawn, his former bully, all along, and that he actually resented me for saving him. He confessed that he'd fallen for Fawn long ago, but turned down her confession back then because he felt unworthy of her. Had I not meddled back then, they would have ended up together, to be with Fawn openly. Soren even slipped me slow-acting poison in secret, tragically. Before I could gather enough evidence to send him to prison, my stepsister caused me to fall to my death. This lifetime, I decided to honor Soren's wish and stop meddling in others' affairs. He should be thanking me instead. What right does he have to resent me? I'd barely taken 2 steps when my stepsister came charging out of nowhere. She shoved me aside violently and rushed to the merman's defense. "I won't let you bully him." I froze. My stepsister is utterly selfish. She couldn't care less about anyone else's well-being. My stepsister shot me a look, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Silently, her gaze conveyed, "Sister, this lifetime, it's my turn to win the merman's favor." What more was there to understand? My stepsister was also reborn, too. In our world, humans and beastfolk coexist peacefully and can even fall in love and marry. After all, beastfolk possess unique talents. They're in no way inferior to humans. Take merfolk for example. Most have extraordinary intelligence and have amassed considerable wealth. In my past life, my mother saved a mermaid. That mermaid happened to be the patriarch of the obscenely wealthy Ronson family, who proposed a verbal marriage pact with our household out of gratitude. Then my scumbag father had an affair with my stepmother while still married, driving my mother to an early grave with heartbreak. To make matters worse, my stepsister stole my place and married the Ronson family heir. She was absolutely smug back then, convinced that unimaginable wealth was about to fall into her lap. But merfolk are cold-blooded by nature, with mercurial tempers. My stepsister found no happiness in her marriage. Meanwhile, I married the merman my stepsister once scorned. Blessed with a golden voice, he swiftly rose to stardom. He cultivated a devoted husband persona, and I became the envy of everyone. At a party, my stepsister, consumed by jealousy, pushed me off a tall building. I, in turn, dragged her down with me. Looking back, neither of us survived that fall. At this very moment, Fawn coldly stared at her stepsister. "Are you sure you want to meddle?" The stepsister continued to shield Soren. "Others might fear you, but I don't. Go on, try to hit me if you dare." Fawn was no pushover. "Fine, I'll take you down too." The next second, the alley echoed with the stepsister's blood-curdling screams. That's when she finally remembered me. "Sis, call the cops, hurry." I quickened my pace. 3. The very next day, I heard my stepsister had been beaten so badly she was hospitalized. As for Fawn, my stepmother had her hauled off to the police station. In my past life, I'd scared Fawn off by pretending the cops were coming, so none of this ever happened. My worthless father and stepmother nearly lost their minds seeing my stepsister's broken hand. What are we going to do? You're supposed to get engaged to the head of the Ronson family in 2 days, looking like this. How can you possibly go through with the engagement? My stepsister pouted. I don't want to marry Ronson, I want to be with Siren. My worthless father's eyes widened in shock. Have you lost your mind? You're throwing away unimaginable wealth for some stinking merman. Clinging to his arm, my stepsister cooed. Dad, Siren isn't some nobody. He writes amazing songs and has an incredible voice. He's going to be a huge star someday. My stepsister still doesn't know that all the songs Siren sang in our past life were written by me, but to establish his image as a musical genius, he publicly claimed all his songs were his original work. Back then, I was fooled by his sweet talk and thought that lovers didn't need to be so particular about such things, so I didn't object. In this life, Siren can forget about becoming a big star. My stepsister noticed the disapproval on my scumbag father and stepmother's faces. She continued, Mom, Dad, marrying into a wealthy family isn't that simple. Someone as naive and guileless as me would be devoured alive if I married Ronson. Let my sister marry him instead. Would you really send me to my doom? The doting stepmother was quickly persuaded. She said to me grudgingly, What a lucky break for you. Soon you'll be trading your rags for riches. I pressed my lips together. If we're being honest, this marriage was always meant for me. The Ronson family initially agreed to an oral engagement with my family out of gratitude for my mother saving a life. However, this arrangement was only brought up by the elder Ronson patriarch on his deathbed, when he requested that Ronson marry a daughter from my family, but he never specified whom to marry, giving my scumbag father and stepmother room to maneuver. In the end, they arranged for my stepsister to wed Ronson. As I was leaving the hospital room, my stepsister called out to me, Shira, I know you've been reborn too, don't celebrate too soon. Haven't you realized, a loveless marriage is just stale leftovers, utterly meaningless. Her lips curled in delight. This lifetime, it's my turn to bask in a merman's tender affection, since merfolk are cold-blooded by nature. You can look forward to dying alone. I smiled faintly. Thanks for the blessing. My stepsister's smile froze. Keep telling yourself that. She had no idea I was being completely serious. Back then, my scumbag father and my mother actually loved each other for a while, but it didn't last. My father started an affair with my stepmother while my mom was still pregnant with me. My mother passed away from SARS shortly after I was born. My stepmother treated me harshly, and it wasn't until I was an adult that I finally knew what it was like to have enough to eat and wear. For me, money is far more important than love. For Ronson met with me on the eve of my engagement. He was a handsome merman. To be precise, he possessed a striking, almost aggressive kind of beauty. Ronson had fair skin, sharply defined brows, and piercing, ice-cold blue eyes. A pair of semi-rimless, gold-framed glasses rested on his high-nose bridge, subtly softening his otherwise unapproachable demeanor, even confined to a wheelchair. His commanding presence remained undeniable. Yet his striking looks at girls discreetly snapping photos with their phones. Ronson cut straight to the chase when we met. Miss Shira, are you absolutely certain about marrying me? I nodded. Ronson gave me an indifferent glance, his tone aloof as ever. Think carefully. I've no interest in romance. Money's all I can offer you. My eyes lit up. Money sounded perfect. Right here, right now. With a sincere expression, I confessed. To be honest, Mr. Ronson, I've liked you for a long time. Every day, just seeing you makes me feel like the happiest person in the world. It's okay if you don't love me, as long as I love you. I imagined Ronson as a wad of cash and poured out my heart to him, confessing my feelings nonstop. Since I saw him as my long-term meal ticket, I naturally had to go all out in providing emotional value. My words were incredibly heartfelt. After all, who doesn't love money? So Ronson never doubted my love for him. I understand, Ronson said with rare remorse in his ice-cold eyes, handing me a card. There's $5 million in here. Take it for now. $5 million. The moment Ronson dropped $5 million, I knew I hadn't married the wrong man. I was ecstatic, but I still pursed my lips demurely. You know I love you for who you are, but this is the first gift you've given me, and I simply must accept it. Ronson sighed softly, then had his secretary hand me an invitation to an auction. Anything you fancy in there, bid on it. Consider it my gift to you. As for anything else, don't even think about it. Got it? I readily agreed. If I recall correctly, everything at this auction is valued at over $10 million. I'm only Ronson's fiancée-to-be, and he's already this generous. If I were to become Ronson's wife, the unimaginable wealth would be absolutely insane. The moment Ronson left, I was beaming, brighter than the sun. Here comes my fabulous life of leisure and freedom, with a husband who might as well be dead for all the difference he makes. Before getting into the car, Ronson glanced at me through the restaurant window, his eyes flickering with confusion. She's this overjoyed about marrying me. Is she really that in love? Even he didn't realize it himself, but upon this realization, his usually jade-cold expression softened ever so slightly. 5. Cheerfully humming a tune, I made my way to the front door. I bumped into Siren, the merman, ringing my doorbell. He was specifically there to visit my stepsister, who had just been discharged from the hospital. Seeing me, Soren's face clouded over. Shira, I really misjudged you. I thought you had a kind heart, but I never imagined you'd just stand by and do nothing. Soren and I were college classmates. We used to volunteer together at the orphanage. It's not like he doesn't know me at all, not after all this time. I shot him a glance. Looks like you're not dead yet, still got energy to curse like a fishwife. Huh, you. Soren flushed with anger, yet perplexed. Did I ever wrong you before? Not at all. I smiled faintly. I just can't stand scum like you living comfortably in this world. Got a problem with that. In my past life, he was the one who begged for my help when bullied, yet rode to fame on songs I wrote. He got everything because of me. Yet he told me he'd always hated me, and that he'd fallen in love with Fawn. The one who used to bully him. Soren is such a hypocrite, playing both sides. He's truly a top-tier scumbag. Soren's face flushed even redder. Just as he was about to explode, his stepsister ran over. She shoved me away, as if she was terrified I'd steal Soren from her. Then she clung to Soren's arm again, beaming with sweetness. Darling, you came to see me. Soren smiled gently at her. I made chicken soup to nourish you. Overwhelmed with gratitude, his stepsister planted a kiss on his cheek. You're so sweet. Soren's lips tightened as he suppressed his impatience, muttering, a young lady should act with more restraint. My stepsister shot me a defiant look. You're my boyfriend now. Kissing you is my natural right. Who dares object? Indeed, things between my stepsister and Soren progressed at lightning speed. Just 2 days ago, my stepsister confessed to Soren, and he accepted without hesitation. I know exactly what game Soren's playing. Soren is a pauper now. My family owns a moderately successful company, and he plans to use it as a stepping stone to become worthy of Fawn. Before they entered the house, my stepsister shot me a warning glance and whispered, Shira, stay away from Soren. I'm his girlfriend now. I calmly replied, don't worry, I'm not blind. Soren's neither as handsome as Ronson nor as straightforward. What matters most is how generous Ronson's been to me. What was I thinking? Falling for an ungrateful jerk like Soren again. My stepsister wouldn't buy it. Stop pretending. You're clearly eaten up with regret. You saw Ronson today, didn't you? He's an ice-cold monster. You'll never feel an ounce of his love. You simply don't exist in his heart. Not like Soren, so gentle and attentive. Being with him feels like breathing pure sweetness. I shot back. Is love really that important? For me, love isn't a necessity. I've lived my whole life without much love, and I'm doing just fine, in fact. It was back in high school when my deadbeat dad cut off my tuition and living expenses. He sugarcoated it as me coming of age and needing independence, leaving me to endure some truly wretched days. Money matters far more than love ever could, my stepsister said coldly. Keep lying to yourself. She glided into the room while I headed upstairs. Just as my stepsister and Soren were enjoying their sweet moment, I heard a commotion downstairs. Soren, are you out of your mind? Fawn beat me up like this, and you want me to drop the charges and get her out of jail? That was my stepsister's voice. My scumbag father refused to reconcile with Fawn, so she's looking at least half a month in detention, Soren said gently. Sable, the Fawn family is not to be trifled with. I'm afraid Fawn will come back to get revenge on you, my stepsister sneered. I'm not to be trifled with either. If she dares to hit me again, I'll make her regret it. Seeing that he couldn't convince my stepsister, Soren gave up. The two became a sweet, loving couple once again. That is, if you ignore the darkness lurking in Soren's eyes. After getting my fill of gossip, I contentedly returned to my room. Soren, the stepsister, and Fawn, these three villains have truly found each other. I have a feeling their lives are about to get very interesting, but none of this concerns me anymore. Right now, I have more pressing matters to attend to. 6. I made my way to the slums in the northern part of the city. This place is a melting pot of all sorts, breeding violence and crime. Following my memory, I arrived in front of a shabby, low-roofed house. From inside came the sound of a middle-aged man whipping a girl with his belt. Just sign with the agency and you'll be a star. I'll get $500,000 up front. What's your damn problem? Waiting for debt collectors to beat me to death before you're happy? I'll teach you some gratitude, you ungrateful brat. I gave a subtle nod to the 2 bodyguards I'd just hired. They burst in immediately and stopped the man's brutality. The man, a bully who preyed on the weak, saw 2 burly men approaching and his arrogant demeanor instantly deflated. I'm disciplining my own daughter. Don't meddle in my business. I handed the man a contract. Sign this disarmament agreement, and this $500,000 is yours. The man's eyes lit up. Really? Then, he looked at me with a mix of belief and suspicion. Why are you helping that little brat? That's because she once helped me. The assaulted girl was Lyra, Soren's greatest rival in their past life singing career. Merfolk are born with exceptional singing voices. Lyra's voice possessed a uniquely healing quality. If it weren't for every song I wrote for Siren becoming a massive hit, Siren wouldn't even be a match for Lyra. It was then that Lyra accidentally stumbled upon Siren and Fawn's affair, and also learned about their plot to slowly poison me. Unable to bear seeing me hurt and deceived, she told me everything immediately. Before I even had a chance to thank her, she fell to her death. Only then did I realize that Lyra, who had always healed her listeners with her songs, was the one who needed healing the most. She came from a terrible family background. Her father was an alcoholic and a gambler. Every time he got drunk or lost money gambling, he would beat her and her mother. When Lyra was 8, her mother was driven away by her father, and when Lyra turned 18, her father sold her for 500,000 yuan to an unscrupulous talent agency. She became an object, not only forced to make money for the agency but also treated as a plaything for men's amusement. Given a second chance at life, I'm determined not only to change my own fate but also to rescue Lyra from her dire circumstances. Pulling myself back to the present, I could tell Lyra's father was trying to extort me. I calmly stated, "I only have 500,000, don't even think about asking for more, you have 1 minute to decide, or the offer's off the table." Seeing my ordinary clothes, Lyra's father mostly believed me and grumbled, "Fine, I'll sign, won't I?" I handed Lyra the document, disowning her. "You're free now, will you come with me?" Lyra was so tiny then, with crisscrossing scars all over her arms, yet her eyes weren't melancholic like in her past life. They held a stubborn defiance, like a small, wild animal. Lyra nodded without hesitation. "I will." 7. I rented an apartment for Lyra and gave her enough living expenses to ensure she could live comfortably. Lyra looked at me gratefully. "Sister Shira, what can I do for you?" I simply asked. "What is the one thing you want to do most?" "I don't need Lyra to do anything for me. If possible, I wish Lyra could live freely and unburdened, unlike how she was constrained in her previous life." Lyra answered without hesitation, "I want to be a singer. My mom always said my voice has healing power. I hope my songs can bring people some joy." She continued, "The reason I didn't sign with that agency is their contract felt like indentured servitude. Signing would mean selling my entire life to them. If I didn't comply, I'd face crippling penalties. That's terrifying." A thought struck me. "Would you consider signing with my company instead? With my current funds and songwriting skills for Lyra, I could totally start a talent agency just for her. Lyra is a born singer, her stardom was inevitable. When that happens, it'll be a win-win for both of us." As for Siren, without my songs, he's not even qualified to be Lyra's rival, this time around. My stepsister will never become the enviable wife of a superstar. Lyra's eyes sparkled even brighter. "That's perfect." 8. Running a talent agency costs way more than I imagined, but no worries, I've got Ronson's exclusive auction invitation. Any single item in there is worth millions. Ronson told me I could bid on whatever caught my eye. His assistant Xander would handle the payment. That meant all I needed was to win the cheapest auction item and discreetly resell it for instant startup capital. With this plan in mind, I sent Ronson a good morning text along with a cheesy pickup line I found online. "Just bought a clock. Guess what kind? I'm clock crazy about you." These days, I make sure to greet Ronson morning, noon, and night each time with a fresh corny pickup line. After all, I love him, even when we're apart. I need to make sure he feels my presence. Besides, cheesy pickup lines don't cost a thing, just as he said. Ronson is naturally aloof and has little interest in romance, so he's never replied to any of my messages. I even suspect he's never once opened our chat window. The auction was scheduled for the afternoon. When I arrived, luxury cars crowded the entrance of the auction house. I handed Ronson's invitation to the tuxedo-clad attendant. After verifying its authenticity, the attendant was about to let me through. "Wait a minute," a chilling voice suddenly spoke up behind me. "Waiter, are you certain this invitation is genuine?" I turned to see a middle-aged man with a ponytail glaring at me with clear hostility. Drawing from my past life's memories, I recognized him, Thorn, the owner of the talent agency Lyra had signed with in her previous life. He shamelessly exploited Lyra, treating her like merchandise and delivering her to different men's beds. It's safe to say that if Lyra jumps to her death, he'll be the one most to blame. This time, it's probably because I took Lyra from him, which made him unhappy, and that's why he's targeting me like this. The waiter confirmed again. "Yes, this is Mr. Ronson's exclusive invitation. It must have been given to this lady by Mr. Ronson." Thorn raised an eyebrow slightly. "Oh, she didn't steal it, did she? Looking at how this lady is dressed, she doesn't seem like someone connected to Ronson. The marriage arrangement between our family and the Ronsons was only proposed on the old patriarch's deathbed, so it's no surprise Thorn wasn't informed." The waiter, eager to curry favor with Thorn, began eyeing me with visible hostility. "Miss, are you absolutely certain this invitation came directly from Mr. Ronson?" I replied coolly. "Feel free to call and verify with him if you doubt my word." "I'd love to just call him directly." But knowing Ronson's cold shoulder when it comes to replying to my messages, I highly doubt he'd pick up. The waiter, intimidated again, mumbled, "If you say so, then it must be." I gave him a long, hard look. "You just believe whatever irrelevant people tell you. With that kind of intelligence, it's no wonder you're stuck as a doorman." Stunned by the remark, the waiter's face flushed a delightful mix of red and white. I took the invitation, ignoring Thorn and the attendant, and was about to enter when my stepsister blocked my way. She had just arrived with Soren and happened to witness the whole spectacle. At this moment, my stepsister's face was filled with surprise. "How could Ronson have given it to you? He's never given me anything before. This invitation, you either forged it or stole it. In my previous life, the first time my stepsister met Ronson, he very directly told her that he had no interest in romance, and that he could give her nothing but money, asking her to consider carefully if she truly wanted to marry him. My stepsister is incredibly ambitious, scheming to win Ronson over with her unique charm. Once she does, Ronson's fortune will be hers to squander as she pleases." She declared he was the only man for her, then feigned indignation, claiming she loved him for who he was, not his money, and that he shouldn't insult her love with financial offers. That's why Ronson didn't give her 5 million, nor did he give her this invitation. At the time, the stepsister mistakenly believed her disdain for money would pique Ronson's interest, perhaps even affection, but she was wrong. Even after their marriage, despite her every effort to seduce him, Ronson never touched her, remaining as cold and indifferent as ever. Eventually, she followed her mother's advice and drugged Ronson. It was then that the stepsister witnessed the violent, bloodthirsty side hidden beneath Ronson's calm and indifferent exterior. His blue hair grew wildly like seaweed, fins sprouted behind his ears, and cold scales appeared on his pale cheeks. A bloodthirsty glint emanated from those deep blue eyes. He resembled a mythical sea demon, alluring yet perilous. An icy hand gripped her throat, his voice as cold as ice, warning her not to do anything unnecessary. Even though Ronson released her quickly, that was the closest she'd ever felt to death. After that, it became difficult for her stepsister to even get a glimpse of Ronson. Yet, her stepsister couldn't bring herself to divorce Ronson, or rather, she couldn't bear to give up her status as his wife. Later, when her stepsister saw Soren on TV, claiming to be a doting husband who cherished me, she became extremely unbalanced. "She's no less capable than I am, so why is her marriage a mess while mine is so harmonious?" At a banquet, consumed by jealousy and hatred, she pushed me off a tall building. At this moment, my stepsister's tone was somewhat aggressive. "Yes, it must have been you who stole it." She considered herself far superior to me, so it made no sense that Ronson sent me an invitation but not her. Thorn asked his stepsister, "Do you know her?" "She's my half-sister," the stepsister replied with a glint of malice in her eyes. "You wouldn't know this, but my dear sister here has always had sticky fingers since childhood." Soren chimed in, Shira's wicked by nature. Exactly the type who'd pull something like this. Their words cast a shadow over the room, and the guests' glances toward me grew noticeably colder. "I know talking won't do any good. No matter what I say, they'll always have a comeback to shut me down. If words can't solve it, then fists will. At least I'll get some satisfaction." I lunged forward and slapped my stepsister and Soren, one right after the other. As for Thorn, who started all the trouble, I didn't let him off easy either. I kicked him right in the groin. Things happened so fast that by the time the waiters came to intervene, I was already on my third round of fighting. It's not that I'm too strong, it's just that they're too weak. My stepsister and Soren had just recovered from their injuries, and Thorn, well, he'd long been hollowed out by booze and women. He was all show and no substance. My stepsister and Soren clutched their cheeks in unison. "Have you lost your mind?" I flexed my wrist. "I'm Ronson's fiancé, if others don't know." "You certainly should. How dare you slander me like this? I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't teach you a lesson." My stepsister's eyes flickered. "Sister, you've truly gone mad. To actually delude yourself into thinking you're the head of Ronson family's fiancé, just as I expected. At least I got to enjoy beating them." Having already vented my anger, hearing her twist the truth doesn't rile me up anymore. Thorn grimaced in pain while laughing hysterically. "Ronson's fiancé? If you're really Ronson's fiancé, I'll eat shit standing on my head." He shot the waiter a meaningful glance. "What are you waiting for? Arrest that thief immediately. After the auction, I'll personally interrogate and teach them a lesson." His tone dripped with venomous malice. The waiter I'd humiliated earlier had been nursing a grudge, and now he was about to grab my wrist. "Who dares lay hands on my fiancé?" A frosty, irritated voice rang out from nearby. Following the sound, I saw Ronson had somehow appeared at the auction, his icy gaze fixed on the unfolding farce. 9. My stepsister's face instantly changed when she saw Ronson. In her mind, Ronson had zero interest in these auctions and would never normally show up at such events. That's why she dared to slander me without hesitation. Thorn was completely stunned. "Wait, this lady really is your fiancé, Ronson? To be precise, she's my fiancé-to-be." Shira and I will be holding our engagement party next Monday. You're all welcome to attend, Ronson said icily. Except for Mr. Song, I won't tolerate anyone who disrespects my future wife. Thorne's face drained of all color. As a businessman, he knew Ronson's ruthless reputation in the corporate world. Those who crossed Ronson never lived to regret it. Well, he's a merman, born cold-blooded. Now it seems we can add another trait to Ronson's list. He's fiercely protective of his own. Thorne, his arrogance completely gone, pleaded. Ronson, I didn't mean to target Miss Shira. I was blind. I didn't recognize that Shira was your fiancé. Ronson, please, you're a magnanimous man. Just forgive me this once, Ronson said calmly. I'm not the one you should be apologizing to. It's Shira. You want me to apologize? A shadow flickered in Thorne's eyes. He absolutely despises me. First, I rescued Lyra from him, then I just beat him up, completely humiliating him, and now, because of me, he's alienated Ronson. But he's a businessman. After weighing the pros and cons, he reluctantly apologized to me. Miss Shira, I'm truly sorry. It's all my fault for causing you such distress today. I chuckled. Who said I was wronged? I gave it right back to them on the spot. Felt amazing. Thorne choked back his words before forcing a smile. Miss Shira's straightforward nature explains why Ronson adores you so much. Watching Thorne's frustrated yet helpless expression, I finally understood what it meant to borrow power from the mighty. Gotta admit, it felt incredibly satisfying. Another day, another reason to love Ronson even more. Thorne continued, / Miss Shira, I truly didn't mean to cause you any trouble. I had a bit too much to drink today. And I was out of my head. I apologize for offending you. Miss Shira, what do you fancy? Jewelry, or perhaps antiques and calligraphy. I'll have it sent to your home another day, along with my sincerest apologies. / No need. / Miss Shira, please don't worry about the cost, as long as it makes you happy. No amount of money is too much. / I cut him off directly. I'm not going to forgive you. Thorne's smile froze instantly. What? It's exactly what it sounds like. Seeing how terrified he was of Ronson, I knew if I didn't forgive him, Ronson wouldn't let him off easy. In his previous life, Thorne had committed many evil deeds. Because of his cowardly nature, he's always managed to avoid any real trouble. This time, it's high time he learned a lesson, so there are fewer victims like Lyra. Thorne's face turned ashen. Are you fucking with me? Ronson's 2 bodyguards immediately stepped in front of me. What do you think you're doing to Miss Shira? And no, it's nothing. Facing the towering bodyguards, Thorne regained his composure. The 2 bodyguards looked at Ronson, silently asking how to deal with Thorne. Ronson's tone was flat. Since Shira won't forgive Mr. Song, then just get rid of him. He's only an eyesore to her. Thorne could barely maintain his composure. Ronson, you have no right to do this. I was officially invited by the auction organizers. The auction organizer rushed out. Anyone unwelcome by Ronson is unwelcome here. You're banned from all future auctions hosted by our company. He then turned to the waiter. Consider yourself fired effective tomorrow. The waiter was consumed with regret, while Thorne looked ready to murder me. He's a bully who preys on the weak and backs down from anyone stronger. He won't dare do anything else. Among those present, Thorne's arch-nemesis was the happiest. He walked over to Thorne, patted him on the shoulder, and said, Mr. Song, I'm afraid you're too important to remember trivial things. Let me just remind you of something you just said. If Miss Shira turns out to be Ronson's fiancé, you promise to eat poop while standing on your head. You just wait. Thorne was trembling with rage. Surrounded by mocking onlookers, he muttered a final threat before slinking away in humiliation. But this wasn't over yet. My gaze shifted to the stepsister who'd just helped Thorne slander me. To my surprise, before I could confront my stepsister, she'd already gone running to Ronson. She began, Ronson, you're new here, so you might not know the full story. It was my sister who stole your invitation, which is why Mr. Song is targeting her like this. Just because Ronson didn't give her an invitation in her past life, she's now convinced that I stole his invitation when I met him last time. My stepsister's thought process is truly bizarre. It just goes to show, reincarnation doesn't necessarily make you smarter. She sighed softly. My sister has always had sticky fingers since she was a child. She was wrong to do this, and I apologize to you. After saying that, she shot me a defiant look. Her thoughts were written all over her face. She just couldn't stand to see me doing well. Ronson lifted his eyelids, his voice impatient. I personally delivered that invitation to Shira. What? My stepsister couldn't believe it. You gave it to her. My stepsister knew merfolk were inherently proud and disdained lying, so everything he said had to be true. My stepsister was about to say more when the auction organizer approached Ronson. Don't worry, Ronson, he said. We won't be inviting someone who twists facts and lacks morals like her back to our auction. An auction attendant moved to escort her out, but she shot him a fierce glare and declared loudly, No need, I'll leave on my own. Before leaving, my stepsister deliberately walked up to me and said, Don't get too ahead of yourself. Ronson is very protective of his own. What he's doing doesn't mean he loves you, unlike Soren, who checks in on me every day. I'm going to start an agency for Soren and launch his career. Once he becomes a big star, everyone will envy our love. I looked deeply at Soren, ambition gleamed in his eyes. I lowered my gaze. With me around, he'll never become a big star in this lifetime. 11. Once Thorn and my stepsister left, the farce finally ended. I walked up to Ronson with a smile and said, "Ronson, what brings you here?" Ronson mentioned that if I ever needed help, I could reach out to Xander, his special assistant, so before throwing punches, I texted Xander with the gist being, "I'm about to teach Thorn a lesson and might get locked up. When you see this, come bail me out." But I never expected Xander to show up this quickly. Ronson said succinctly, "I saw the message you sent me at 11, after a few seconds of thought. I remembered the cheesy pickup line I'd sent Ronson at noon. I had a bowl of noodles today. What kind? The kind that makes me want to see you. Wait, does Ronson actually read all my cringy pickup lines every day? I suddenly want to dig a hole and disappear. Ronson handed me a card, saying, "Xander mentioned you're starting a business. There's 10 million in here. Take it." I kept Ronson's face in my hands and gave him a big smooch. "Ronson, I'm so incredibly in love with you." Ronson seemed taken aback by my sudden move, momentarily frozen. After a few seconds, his handsome brows furrowed slightly. "There are too many eyes on us. Try to be a little more discreet." I naturally pushed his wheelchair forward. With a beaming smile, he added, "All right, I'll kiss you when no one's around." Ronson's lips were pressed into a thin line. "That's not what I meant." He raised a hand to touch the cheek I had just kissed. His long lashes fluttered down slightly, veiling the confusion in his eyes. He didn't seem to mind my touch. Perhaps I was smiling too brightly. He could see the raw, unguarded love shining in my eyes. 12. I went to the auction with Ronson. With my startup funds secured, I lost interest in the auction and turned my attention to Ronson, showering him with small talk and concern, apparently annoyed by my pestering. Ronson shoved the auction catalog into my hands. "See if there's anything you like here." I replied with a beaming smile, "I'll love anything you give me. After all, every auction item here is worth tens of millions. Who wouldn't adore something that valuable?" I leaned in to plant another loud kiss on Ronson's cheek. Cold, slender fingers pressed against my lips. Ronson's voice tensed. "Have some decorum." "Sorry, you're just too gorgeous." I couldn't help myself again. I wasn't saying this to flatter Ronson, but speaking from the heart. Merman are striking, but Ronson was breathtaking, more handsome than any movie star, with an aristocratic grace they could never match. With such a stunning man right before me, my own fiancé no less, resisting the urge to touch him was nearly impossible. Ronson's expression remained aloof as he glanced at his fingertip that had just brushed against my lips. The girl's lips were soft, her warm breath grazing his finger with a faint tingling sensation. That subtle itch crept into his chest as well. Her eyes shone so brightly, as if her entire world revolved around him alone. His heart raced wildly in that moment, as if something had spiraled out of control. In the end, I successfully bid on a landscape painting. The star attraction of the auction, the priceless blue diamond heart of the ocean, was ultimately acquired by family head Kimrick. Kimrick, a merman with godlike beauty, carried an inhuman aura of icy detachment. His expression only softened when speaking to the woman by his side. The woman was strikingly beautiful with an elegant grace, though a faint melancholy lingered between her brows, like delicate jade on the verge of shattering. Murmurs rippled through the surrounding guests. "Yuna's truly blessed. Kimrick just gifted her the ocean's heart, worth 300 million, without a second thought." Blessing? I doubt it. Everyone knows Yuna never liked Kimrick. He only kept her by his side through underhanded means. Mr. Sia has wealth, looks, and treats Yuna better than anyone could ask for. How could she be so ungrateful? Matters of the heart are personal. Let's not gossip about what we don't understand. It suddenly came back to me. In their past life, when Yuna disappeared into the sea, Kimrick went mad with grief and did many reckless things. I only knew about this because Kimrick had publicly offered a $1 billion reward for anyone who could find Yuna, dead or alive. The news spread like wildfire, drawing crowds to the coastal area where Yuna disappeared, all dreaming of striking it rich overnight. Years later, Yuna resurfaced overseas. Rumor has it she faked her death to escape Kimrick's control. I'm not sure what happened after that. I lingered on Kimrick for so long that it caught Ronson's attention. That fascinating. Ronson's voice remained calm. I could clearly sense Ronson seemed somewhat displeased. Without thinking, I blurted out, "Nowhere near as handsome as you. He looks downright scary." Suddenly, he grabbed my hand. "What's this about?" A faint bewilderment flickered in my eyes. Ronson watched the stage, his voice a little strained. "You can't kiss me when people are around, but we can hold hands." This seemed to be Ronson's first move. Feeling delighted, I softly replied, "Okay." My good mood evaporated the moment I walked through the door. 13. The instant I got home, I found my good-for-nothing father and stepmother sitting on the sofa, looking like they were ready to grill me. As for my stepsister, she was standing behind them, clearly enjoying the show, just as I expected. The moment I stepped inside, my scumbag father slammed his teacup down on the coffee table. You have the nerve to show your face here after what you've done. First, you publicly hit your sister. Then you made her the subject of gossip. Who knows what people are saying about our family behind our backs? I raised an eyebrow. Why don't you ask her what good she's been up to? My stepmother pursed her lips. Your sister is still young, a bit impulsive, but she's not a bad person. Can't you just cut her some slack? I scoffed. Still young? She's 23. From the way you talk, I'd think she was still in diapers. And stop calling her my sister. My mother only has one daughter. And that's me. You calling her my sister doesn't bother me, but it certainly bothers my mom. My stepmother's chest heaved with anger. She lightly nudged my good-for-nothing father's arm. Old Sia, control your wonderful daughter. My scumbag father picked up a teacup and smashed it right by my feet. Shira, you're completely out of control. Do you even see me as your father anymore? He pointed to the floor littered with shattered porcelain. Get down on your knees and apologize to your stepmother and your sister, or don't expect me to ever forgive you. I stood my ground. Of course, I don't see you as my father. Say that again, I said with a smile. A man who cheats during his wife's pregnancy. Do you really think you're fit to be my father? If anyone needs to apologize, it's you and Ms. Zhang, kneeling before my mother's memorial tablet. My words left my worthless father and stepmother stunned. In the past, I'd always been the obedient one at home. To them, I was just a puppet they could manipulate. Never had I confronted them so directly before. Little did they know I'd been dying to break free from this godawful family, to stop pretending and finally have it out with them. But when I was younger and more naive, confronting them head-on would only lead to my own downfall. Sacrificing myself 1,000 times over while they remained unscathed wasn't bravery, it was sheer foolishness. If my mom were still alive, she'd never want her beloved daughter to live such a miserable life, so I endured, studied hard, and worked on improving myself, all with the goal of escaping this terrible family and living a better life than any of them. In my past life, it took me 2 more years to cut ties with them. Now, with Ronson's backing and my career on the rise, I finally have the leverage to stand up to them. So I sped up the process of severing ties. My deadbeat dad and stepmother exchanged glances, convinced I was just acting out of momentary anger. Their tone softened slightly. Family doesn't hold grudges overnight. We know you're just venting. Once you cool off, you'll regret treating us this way. Your dad and I are very understanding people. We heard Ronson gave you 10 million. Your dad's business is in urgent need of operating capital right now. Just give him that money, and we'll forgive you. It suddenly hit me that in my past life, my scumbag father's company really did face a crisis. Later, it was my stepsister who called Ronson for help, which saved my scumbag father's company from ruin. I have to say, my scumbag father and his whole family are truly shameless. He's the one desperate for money, yet acts like I should be grateful they're willing to take mine. I shot them a glance, daydreaming already. Forget $1 million, you won't get a single cent from me. After my repeated taunts, even that deadbeat father couldn't keep up his loving dad act. Humiliated and red-faced, he pointed at the door. Ungrateful wretch, all these years wasted on you. Get out. From now on, you're no daughter of mine. I pulled out the parent-child severance agreement I'd prepared long ago. Words mean nothing. Sign this. Are you out of your mind? Disbelief was etched all over my scumbag father's face. He'd only said it casually, never expecting that I'd actually produce a parent-child severance agreement. I glared at him with a sneer. What exactly is there to miss about a scumbag like you? You built your success with my mother's money, then betrayed her while she was pregnant. Don't tell me you actually think I'd hesitate to cut ties with a sperm donor like you, if you can't find a mirror. At least check your piss for some self-awareness. You're not half as important as you think. Called out, the bastard's face turned beet red. Who says I'm bluffing? I mean every word about disowning you. My taunting worked. The deadbeat father was absolutely seething. No matter how much my stepmother tried to persuade him, he didn't change his mind and just signed his name on it. I got the disownment papers I wanted, and a small weight lifted from my chest. My whole purpose in coming here today was to provoke my scumbag father into signing these disownment papers, this way. I won't have to be involved with these disgusting people anymore, my scumbag father said coldly. This elite family may look glamorous, but it's actually a den of vipers. If you ever feel wronged in Ronson's family, even if you come back crying, I won't let you through the door. You don't need to worry about that. Ronson is rich. If I'm ever wronged there, I can fly to a resort spa abroad to cry, or cry in a 9-star hotel, or even cry while shopping at a luxury store. Any of those options sounds infinitely better than seeing any of you jinxes. My scumbag father trembled with rage. Get out of my sight. I turned to leave, and my stepsister walked over. Shira, don't get too ahead of yourself. Soren is about to debut, and he's signed with my agency. Once he becomes a big star, making 10 million will be a piece of cake. Then my dad's company will finally have the capital it needs to operate. I extended a helping hand to Soren when he was at his lowest. For the rest of his life, Soren will love and cherish me. As for you, all you'll ever get is Ronson's cold, hard cash, no love, no family. You'll just spend the rest of your life alone with your money. I smiled genuinely, repeating my earlier sentiment. Thank you for your blessing. My stepsister felt like she was punching cotton. Slamming the door with a "we'll see how long that tough talk lasts," I lowered my gaze. While she had Soren, I possessed Lyra, someone several times more remarkable. Soren would never reach the heights of his past life again. 14. After moving out of my worthless father's place, I contacted a realtor to hunt for a new apartment. Meanwhile, Ronson called. This was the second time he'd reached out to me directly, and my curiosity piqued. I answered the call. Your father just contacted my assistant, Ronson asked. His company is in trouble and he's looking for 10 million in funding. Do you want me to help him? I was somewhat taken aback by my scumbag father's audacity. He'd disowned me, yet he thought Ronson wouldn't know that, and was trying to squeeze one last dime out of him. I was a bit surprised Ronson would call me for my opinion. Don't lend it to them. I've already cut ties with them today, I said, lowering my gaze. Why would you specifically call me about this, whether to lend or not? Ronson could totally make that decision himself, after all. 10 million is pocket change to him. Your stepsister is downright insolent, clearly spoiled rotten by her parents. The way she treats you, I suspect mirrors your father's attitude toward you, Ronson said calmly. As a rather petty merman, I refuse to offer assistance to anyone who mistreats my fiancé. The corners of my lips curled upward. What a coincidence. I happen to be quite petty myself, in that moment. Warmth flooded through my heart. This was the first time someone had ever cherished me unconditionally. To be precise, it's not favoritism. Ronson is just a bit protective of his own, but I have to admit, having someone in your corner isn't bad at all. Originally, I chose to marry Ronson for the money, yet, it seems I've gained something from him that's just as precious as money. I suddenly wondered what kind of mermaid could be as cold-blooded and violent as my stepsister described. The line remained silent for what felt like ages. Ronson, are you still there? Without warning, Ronson blurted out, want to move in with me? What is it? My place is huge, and I'm the only mermaid living there. If you haven't found a place yet, you're welcome to stay with me. Living with Ronson would be a perfect chance to get to know him better. Since I happen to need a place to stay, I immediately agreed. Sure. Meanwhile, Xander, the assistant, widened his eyes in surprise upon hearing Ronson had personally invited me to stay at his place. Assistant Xander had been with Ronson for many years and knew him well. Ronson valued his peace and quiet, and was very territorial. He didn't like anyone else in his personal space, so the housekeepers would only clean and prepare his meals when he was out, quietly leaving before he returned from work. Assistant Xander's curiosity was written all over his face. Ronson was in a good mood and patiently explained, I'm not against Shira's advances, I'm actually curious to see how far things might go between us. Just curious. Assistant Xander lowered his gaze. Ronson probably didn't even realize how serious his expression was when he just asked Shira if she wanted to move in with him, as if he were tackling an unsolvable math problem. Later, after he heard Shira agree, the corners of his mouth unconsciously turned upward. It's pretty clear Ronson's got a thing for Shira, even if he hasn't realized it himself yet. 15. Ronson and I started this rather interesting cohabitation arrangement. I moved into the guest room right next to his. Though we were living together, Ronson was actually away on business trips abroad for quite a while at the beginning. He only managed to squeeze in a quick trip back for the engagement. But that doesn't mean he wasn't taking it seriously. The engagement party was a grand affair, with all the city's prominent figures in attendance. I once asked Ronson if he wasn't inviting too many people for just an engagement. Ronson earnestly explained to me that while he doesn't care for big crowds, he didn't want anyone like Thorne to ever bother me again, even though I knew Ronson's reason for doing this was his instinctive protectiveness. Even if Xander, his special assistant for many years, were to be bullied, he would still step in. And that truly touched me. It's a truly wonderful feeling to be cared for. After some time, Ronson's overseas work concluded, and he moved back home. It was only then that I discovered Ronson had very poor eating habits. He was so consumed by his work that he'd often lose track of time, forgetting to eat, which eventually took a toll on his stomach. I once saw him in the throes of a stomach attack, his tall frame slightly hunched, his face utterly drained of color. His forehead beaded with cold sweat, and his lips pale. He bore the pain with a stoic expression, not uttering a single sound. In that moment, I felt a pang of sadness. It dawned on me then that Ronson wasn't invincible after all. He, too, needed care. Ronson has helped me so much. I really want to do something for him in return. From that day on, I'd watch him eat dinner every evening, in my free time. I'd also stew some nourishing tonics for him to help him recuperate. If he was late coming back from a business trip, I'd always leave a light on for him. Ronson told me not to bother, just to focus on my own things, but I knew deep down he was pleased when I showed him I cared. A subtle smile would always play on his lips. This Merman is a classic Sundara, 16. While I was busy helping Ronson recover, I didn't neglect my own career either. Ronson gave me a 10 million card at the auction, and with the 4 million plus I already had, it was more than enough to launch my own talent agency. My agency has only signed Lyra for now, and I immediately wrote her a full album's worth of songs. Lyra has a natural musical gift. When she saw the songs I wrote for her, she exclaimed excitedly, "Shira, I've got a feeling these tracks are gonna blow up." When my stepsister heard I'd started an agency to promote Lyra, she called just to mock me, "Shira, have you got money to burn or what, signing Lyra?" She couldn't measure up to Soren in her past life, and no matter how much you spend on her now, she'll never stand a chance against Soren. My tone-deaf stepsister never paid attention to the music scene in her past life either. All she knew was that Soren always outshone Lyra, so she assumed Soren was superior. Little did they know, Lyra just needed the right opportunity. Lyra's musical talent far surpasses Soren's, with her exquisite tone, masterful technique, and a voice that heals the soul. She's a born diva. Even when her previous agency gave her mediocre songs, her interpretation could breathe new life into them. Unlike Soren, who's considered a decent singer among humans but rather average by merfolk standards, he couldn't hit some high notes, so I had to adapt the songs to suit his range. In our past life, without the songs I wrote, he'd have remained just another merfolk with passable vocals. Never would have gone viral. Now that I've met Lyra, I can compose freely while she unleashes her full potential. We're practically the dream team. In this lifetime, Lyra will undoubtedly reach greater heights than Soren. Seeing my silence, my stepsister grew even more smug. "Shira, you claim you don't care about Soren, yet you signed Lyra to compete against him. You regret it, don't you, that I got Soren, and his gentle affection, so you're trying to use Lyra to suppress him, to stop me from becoming the envied wife of a big star. Well, let me tell you, it's a waste of effort. True talent always shines through. I'm already preparing to launch Soren's career. In his past life, Soren became a megastar without any backing. Now that I'm supporting him, he'll soar even higher than before." I said calmly, "You're overthinking this. I just want both Lyra and myself to live comfortably, at the very least, better than our previous lives. Though Ronson's money could easily keep me comfortable, just a few of his cards would cover all my needs. I refuse to be some clinging vine dependent on him. That would mean losing myself, becoming nothing but an accessory desperate to please him. Even if Ronson and I part ways in the future, I hope I'll still be able to live a good life. As for Lyra, I hope she can do whatever she wants and no longer have her destiny controlled by others, unlike in her previous life." My stepsister scoffed, "Really? I don't believe it." Soon enough, my stepsister wouldn't be smiling anymore. 17. Soren and Lyra debuted on the same day. The day before their debut, my stepsister even sent me a taunting message. "Shira, I don't know whether to call you stupid or just plain dumb, daring to debut Lyra on the same day as Soren. What, got too much money to burn? With Soren around, Lyra's debut won't even make a splash. If Ronson knew how stupid and wasteful you are, bringing shame upon him, he'd definitely give you the silent treatment." I chuckled softly. "Silent treatment? After Ronson and I got engaged, he gives me 10 million in pocket money every month. The 10+ million I spent on starting my company might be a lot to you, but to Ronson, it's just my regular allowance. I spend it, and I spend it, as long as I'm happy. Ronson won't say a word." My stepsister looked surprised. "How can that be? Ronson never gave me that much pocket money in my past life." She quickly realized that in her previous life, the first time she met Ronson, she told him she loved him for who he was and not to insult her with money. This led to Ronson never giving her a bank card again afterward. Because of this, she harbored deep resentment toward their marriage. The stepsister said through gritted teeth, "One day Ronson will realize you're just a gold digger and kick you to the curb. Just you wait." Afraid I'd provoke her further, she hung up in a hurry. My stepsister was hellbent on making Soren an overnight sensation, pouring a fortune into his promotion. Soren's singing talent was mediocre even among merfolk. His current album only exists because my stepsister hummed his future hit songs from her past life memories, which composers rearranged for him to perform, tone-deaf as she is. The melodies she hummed bore only a passing resemblance to my original compositions. The combination of his forgettable voice and uninspired songs was nothing short of a train wreck. Unsurprisingly, Soren's debut barely made a splash this time. Many netizens mocked. With skills like this, he dares to call himself the next king of pop. What a joke. Are the standards for mermaid idols really this low nowadays? Sugar mommy, pick me, my singing voice is way better than his, and I've got a hotter bod too. I'll definitely make you happier than he ever could. The stepsister was furious and personally jumped into the online debate to clap back at netizens. What do you all know? Soren is the next big thing in music. Just give him time, he'll become someone you look up to and netizens, give him time, and he'll only produce more musical trash to pollute our ears. A pop icon, more like Gotham's clown. Hey now, that's an insult to clowns. My stepsister was left speechless. She just threw out a "you'll see, time will tell" before smashing her phone in rage. Even though Soren's debut album barely made a ripple, his stepsister never once suspected it was Soren's fault. Soren debuted 2 years earlier than before, and she thought it was because he debuted too soon, so he hadn't had time to create those songs yet, to help him become a talented singer-songwriter like he was in his past life. She even spent a fortune enrolling Soren in a masterclass so he could learn songwriting from the best. Unlike Soren, who faced a complete flop right after his debut, Lyra's new album was a huge hit with netizens, immediately topping the new song charts on all major music platforms. This is the first time I've truly felt the healing power of music. Oh my god, I'm hearing angels sing. Is no one going to give Shira some credit for writing Lyra's songs? Her lyrics, combined with Lyra's music, are just out of this world. I only have one wish right now. I really want her to write a song for my idol. Make a wish together. When Lyra and I saw how well our work was received, far beyond what we'd imagined, we treated ourselves to a celebratory dinner out. Lyra told me her father had recently lost a fortune gambling, couldn't repay the debt, and was beaten to death by loan sharks. His fate didn't exactly come as a surprise to me. Ronson is still out of the country on business. I'm planning to treat him to a big meal once he's back. Without his financial support, my agency might have eventually gotten off the ground, but it definitely wouldn't have been this smooth. As for my stepsister, there's been no word from her. It's not that she didn't want to, but that she couldn't. After that last conversation, I blocked my deadbeat dad's whole family to stop her from constantly seeking attention. Knowing her personality, I could already guess what she'd say, just some nonsense about me not getting too cocky, and how she'd eventually outdo me. Soon enough, the day came for Ronson to return home. I went to the airport to pick him up, carrying a large bouquet of roses. Ronson is incredibly handsome. The moment he stepped out of the airport, I spotted him. I jogged over to him, gave him a warm hug, and then pressed the roses into his hands, saying, "Welcome back." Ronson's voice softened. "Are you that happy to see me?" I shot back, "And you're not happy to see me?" Ronson paused, seemingly taken aback by my question. He gazed at the vibrant roses in his hand, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I'm happy too," he said. 18. I took Ronson to the tallest restaurant in High City, located on the 128th floor. Inside our private room, Ronson and I sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the entire High City. It's funny, but this place is actually one of Ronson's properties too. As soon as we were seated, Ronson pulled out an understated black velvet gift box. "Congratulations on the huge success of your work," he said. "This is a celebratory gift." I opened it to find a dazzling diamond necklace, so stunningly beautiful that its value was immediately apparent. Ronson really knows how to pick out gifts, I have to admit. Gazing at his handsome face, I leaned in and gave him a big smooch. With a playful smile, I whispered, "No one's around now, so I can finally kiss you." Ronson had a faint, helpless smile in his eyes, as if to say, "There's nothing you can do about me." The dining atmosphere was pleasant until a drunken Thorn suddenly burst in, grabbed a glass, and hurled it at Ronson. "I've already apologized, Ronson. Why are you trying to ruin me completely?" These past few days had been the darkest period of Thorn's life. He's always been reckless, making enemies behind the scenes, but with his wealth and power, no one dared to retaliate. That was until he crossed Ronson, who then sabotaged several of his businesses, one after another. Now, with everyone piling on, he's on the verge of bankruptcy. Learning Ronson was dining in this private room, he stormed over, furious, to confront him. It all happened so fast. Ronson ducked, avoiding the glass, but the dark red wine still streamed down his pale cheek. "Thorn's not done yet. I'm furious. He's my fiancé, and my meal ticket for life. I won't let a single hair on his head be harmed." I stepped in front of Ronson, pushing Thorn towards the door, and yelled out, "Waiter, get him out of here." Behind me, Ronson watched as I fearlessly shielded him, and a different emotion flickered in his eyes, usually as calm as the deep sea. Thorn, seething with rage, grabbed the wine bottle from the table, ready to smash it over my head. "This is all your fault. I wouldn't have offended Ronson if it weren't for you. I wasn't scared at all. I'm trained in kickboxing." The only reason I didn't throw punches at Thorn right then was to maintain my innocent, harmless image around Ronson. Before marriage, it's probably best not to reveal my fighting skills, but if Thorn tries to hurt me, I won't hold back. Stop it. I twisted my hand to grip Thorn's wrist, ready to teach him a lesson. Then a cold, low voice sounded behind me. Turning around, I saw Ronson approaching. Unbelievable. He was actually standing. What kind of medical miracle is this? Ronson's aura was overwhelming, the air thick with an icy mist as if from the ocean depths, leaving Thorn utterly paralyzed. Then Ronson's jade-like hands effortlessly snapped Thorn's wrist before kicking him clear out of the room. Only then did Thorn snap out of his daze, howling like a slaughtered pig. The waiter rushed over as well, apologizing to both Ronson and me while dragging Thorn out. Thorn had several ribs broken, was spitting blood, and was severely injured. He'd be spending the next 2 months in the hospital. Ronson gave Xander, his assistant who had just arrived, a few more instructions. Thorn's career was over for good, and he'd never harm anyone again. I glanced at Ronson's leg and asked, "Is your leg okay?" When Ronson spoke to me, his icy demeanor melted away, returning to his usual gentle self. "It's nothing," he said. That's when I realized Ronson's legs were perfectly fine all along, as a mermaid. He simply disliked walking, that's why he used a wheelchair on land. What a willful mermaid. Ronson took my hand. "Let's go back." I looked at our clasped hands. This was the second time Ronson had initiated something. Even in the car, Ronson didn't let go. He cautioned me, "Next time you're in danger, don't rush to the front like that. Your own safety is what matters most." I know. I wasn't thinking that far ahead then. I just didn't want you to get hurt. That's the truth. He's not just my fiancé, he's also my main financial backer. If anything happened to him, who would make money for me to spend? I won't let anyone harm him. Ronson clearly misunderstood something, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. After returning home, Ronson headed to the backyard swimming pool. I'd never been to the backyard before, this time. Worried Ronson might not have eaten enough and his stomach issues would flare up again. I made noodles and went over specifically to ask if he wanted some. The moment I stepped into the backyard, I was captivated by the scene before me, unable to move. As I approached, Ronson emerged from under the water, his wet hair casually draped around him. His face was expressionless, yet as beautiful as a deity. Below that, I could just make out his 8-pack abs and a merman's tail. His merman tail was absolutely stunning. The scales were mysterious, ocean-like blue, shimmering brilliantly under the lights. It was more dazzling than the most precious jewels, truly captivating. I couldn't help but ask, "May I touch your merman tail?" Ronson paused for a moment before placing his tail in my palm. I gingerly ran my fingers along it. The texture was cool and silky, like the finest satin. On a sweltering summer day, nothing could feel more refreshing. Ronson's body tensed slightly. After one touch, I couldn't resist reaching for another. The beautiful mermaid's gill fins fluttered behind his ears as he asked hoarsely, "Do you want to do something even more reckless with me? What is it?" The next instant, Ronson pulled me into the water, his gorgeous tail coiling around me, his cold, thin lips pressed against mine. Dazed by Ronson's kiss, I still noticed the growing hardness beneath him. Ronson's lips brushed my ear as he murmured, "Shira, you triggered my mating cycle early, you'll have to take responsibility." Wait, do merfolk mating cycles just activate this casually? Soon, I wouldn't have the luxury of thinking about such things. My consciousness drifted in and out, as if floating on clouds. Every time I thought it was over, Ronson would start again. Tears welled up in the corners of my eyes. Aren't mermaids supposed to be cold-blooded? The merfolk reigned supreme in the water. Once, I pushed him away with all my might and swam towards the shore. In a matter of seconds, the merman's tail wrapped around me. The merman's insatiable voice, thick with possessiveness, whispered in my ear, "Shira, let's continue." Okay, I had nowhere to run, completely at Ronson's mercy, passively accepting the pleasure he gave. 19. I'm not sure if Ronson was in heat or something, but he was exceptionally passionate and clingy with me, so passionate, in fact, that now whenever I see a swimming pool, my legs start to feel a little weak. Luckily, Ronson is busy with work. This situation lasted less than a week before Ronson had to go on a business trip abroad. He wanted me to come along, but I declined, citing unfinished work. Those moments were pleasurable, sure, but the merman's stamina was overwhelming. I always ended up completely drained and needed some recovery time. During this period, my stepsister called me using someone else's number. This time, she'd lost her previous arrogance. She was here to ask for my help after Siren debuted. She didn't make much of a splash, and the money she'd invested was essentially lost for good, and all that money came from her deadbeat dad. Back then, her deadbeat dad's company was on the verge of collapse. My stepsister convinced our scumbag dad that Siren was a future superstar, and if he invested in him, they'd make a fortune, saving the company in the process. Because my stepsister had accurately predicted several future events, Our scumbag dad believed she had prophetic abilities and trusted her words. As it turned out, Soren's debut failed, our scumbag dad's investment was lost, and the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. My stepsister started trying to drive a wedge between us, saying, "Merfolk are cold-blooded and violent, you won't find happiness with him, your own family is your only true support." No, Ronson is perfectly fine. Spending these days together has helped me understand why Ronson is so reserved. In some ways, our childhood experiences were quite similar. The former head of Ronson's family was quite the womanizer, leaving behind numerous romantic entanglements. Ronson's birth mother, heartbroken and overwhelmed, took her own life and Ronson's by overdosing on medication. The family's nanny discovered them and called an ambulance. Tragically, Ronson's birth mother had taken too much medication and couldn't be saved. Only Ronson survived. This experience made Ronson averse to romance and affection, viewing them as useless and irrational. The old patriarch had numerous illegitimate children, eyeing Ronson's position as heir apparent of the family. Had Ronson shown even the slightest mercy, he wouldn't be sitting as the current head of Ronson's family. His notorious reputation for cruelty and ruthlessness stemmed from the bloody succession war against his bastard siblings. In truth, Ronson isn't the heartless monster people believe him to be. The hardships of his youth built an emotional wall around his heart. Now, that wall is slowly crumbling down. I added, "I cut ties with my family long ago. I have no relatives to speak of," my deadbeat father said remorsefully. "It was a moment of weakness when I disowned you. All this time, I've worried whether you're eating well or staying warm. In my heart, you'll always be my dear daughter. Oh, this isn't some impulsive decision. I've wanted to cut ties with you for a long time," the deadbeat dad choked, dropping his fatherly act. "You'd really be this cruel? Just watch me die, just reaping what you sowed when you betrayed Mom. Enjoy the consequences." I hung up the phone, mulling it over. I realized I'd need to change my current phone number. Remembering my stepsister's vicious nature from my past life, I hired additional bodyguards for round-the-clock protection. 20, just as I expected. My worthless father's family came looking for me several times, only to be turned away by my security team. Over time, they finally gave up. The days that followed were peaceful and uneventful. My company just signed several talented female artists. These women are incredibly gifted, but their careers never took off in their past lives after crossing someone like Thorn. With my company's management, their careers are now flourishing. The next time I heard about my deadbeat father's family was through tabloid news. He confessed that he'd fallen for Fawn long ago, but turned down her confession back then because he felt unworthy of her. This time in my marriage, the victims weren't me, but Soren and Fawn. Ever since Fawn got reported by her stepsister and was detained for half a month, she's held a bitter grudge against her. When she accidentally discovered Soren actually had feelings for her, she started an affair with him. When stepsister found out, she went to confront Soren and Fawn. Soren was only with stepsister for personal gain. Not only did he fail to profit, but he also became a laughingstock online, so he resented his stepsister. With Fawn now in the picture, he had no desire to be with his stepsister anymore. Soren immediately broke up with his stepsister, and Fawn didn't hold back, mocking her relentlessly. In a fit of rage, the stepsister killed both Soren and Fawn. When my scumbag father and stepmother found out, they helped dispose of Soren and Fawn's bodies. After Fawn's parents learned of her disappearance, they reported it to the police, and my scumbag father's family was quickly arrested. It looks like my scumbag father's family is heading for a reckoning. While my stepsister was in prison, she requested to see me. I didn't go. Later, I heard she attempted suicide several times in prison, muttering about wanting to start over and change her fate. But the guards always saved her. Later on, she started acting completely unhinged. I stopped keeping tabs on her altogether. I've moved on to a brand new chapter in life. Those toxic people and their drama are no longer my concern. 21. A year later, Ronson and I held our wedding on a tropical island. It was an extravagant celebration beyond compare, amidst everyone's blessings. I walked toward Ronson and toward the beautiful future we'd share. Story 2. In the previous life, my husband found out about the extreme cold weather 1 hour in advance, but he immediately drove to help his mistress stock up on goods. My daughter and I were alone at home, lacking supplies. In the -60-degree weather, I helplessly watched my daughter die in my arms from high fever. When my husband came back with his mistresses, he scolded me for being on the verge of death, blaming me for not taking care of my daughter. In a fit of anger, he threw me out of the house to reflect on my mistakes, then smashed my frozen corpse into pieces and sent it to the heating plant as fuel mixed with other trash. This time, I woke up 12 hours before the end of the world, and my husband was on the phone with his mother. On the phone, his mother shouted, "Other daughter-in-law always washes my underwear. Why don't you learn from them?" This time, I quickly replied respectfully, "Mom, I will bring you over right away, and I will serve you on my knees." My mother-in-law's arrogance increased further. probably trying to show off to the other elderly women around her. See, daughter-in-law needs to be taught a lesson. When I go back to my son's place, I'll definitely make her obedient. In my previous life, I didn't pay attention to my mother-in-law's scolding on the phone. In order to regain her dignity, she took a 3-hour bus ride to come over, slapped me 6 times in front of my daughter Snow, took all the valuable health supplements from the house, and proudly took a photo of my swollen face to post on her social media. A disrespectful daughter-in-law should be punished. There were a bunch of likes from relatives below. Snow was scared by my mother-in-law's behavior and developed a fever that night. The feeling of my daughter's body becoming stiff with despair in my arms still stabs at my heart. If this kind of nagging daughter-in-law is what you want, then let whoever wants to be it. I'm going to go against this weather and this sky. In front of me, Griffin was satisfied with my answer and nodded coldly, speaking in a condescending tone. You did pretty well today. I'll be back for dinner tonight. Men who regard coming home for dinner as a reward for their wives are probably rare in the world. I clenched my fists, suppressing the urge to tear the other person apart, and forced a smile, saying to Griffin, you can let me use your car today. It's more convenient for me to pick up Mom. Griffin frowned, looking disgusted, and pointed at me, scolding, you're so clumsy, don't scratch my car, you're always at home with nothing else to do, take a bus, and you'll be back just in time to pick up Snow. It won't interfere with making dinner either. I mentally cursed. This car was my dowry. Why does it become his exclusive property just because I let him use it? But I didn't show it on my face, just looked troubled, and spoke softly. You heard what Mom just said. If I don't give her enough respect, even if I pick her up, there will definitely be a scene. Before I could finish speaking, Griffin reluctantly threw the keys at my face. He didn't want to be scolded all night by his overbearing mom. I wasn't angry. I took the keys and started packing the unopened food in the house in front of Griffin, leaving some scattered items as bait to lure him. The suffering I and Snow endured in my previous life, I will make sure you both experience it tenfold. Griffin looked at my actions and stared at me, scolding. What are you doing? I didn't stop what I was doing. The time before the apocalypse was too precious. I directly replied to him, it's to give them to your 7 aunts and 8 uncles, otherwise when Mom comes back, she'll just take more. Griffin couldn't argue with me. He knew his own mother well. Every time she came, she would take everything. It was better for me to just act obediently. Griffin pouted, grumbling. Remember to wash the car and refuel it after using it, and then adjusted his hair in front of the mirror before rushing out. I, carrying a bunch of food packages, went directly to the building across from mine. My parents secretly bought a small apartment for me here, saying that a married woman without her own house would be easily bullied. I had cried here countless times, but I never expected this house would truly become a sanctuary for me and my daughter. No time for sentimentality. I quickly took out my phone to contact the construction workers and ordered daily necessities through the food delivery platform. In my previous life, food was scarce at home, but I had the habit of rescuing stray dogs. I survived almost a month by relying on stored dog food and ice, and finally, power and transportation were partially restored. I thought I would be rescued, but instead, Thorn, who came with Griffin, kicked me while I was barely alive and said with a pout, Griffin, are you still thinking of keeping this useless person? Then I'll just leave. When Griffin heard this, he immediately threw me out of the house like garbage without saying a word. In the freezing cold, I could only crouch on the ground, hugging myself, and desperately beat the frozen iron door, begging them to let me in, but I got no response. In the end, my blood froze to the door, and I died still maintaining the posture of beating the door. When they opened the door and saw my corpse, they covered their noses and exclaimed in disgust. Griffin's voice was even colder and more heartless. I should have thrown her away a long time ago. Right now, I had just finished explaining the house's anti-theft and insulation requirements to the renovation worker when I got a call from my mother-in-law. Where have you been? Were you crawling on the way? If you were in the countryside, you wouldn't even get fresh feces. I warn you, if you delay my meal, I will tear your mouth off. What I was thinking in my heart was, it's simple to want to eat that thing, you will have to try it in a few days. But I spoke into the phone in a soft and gentle voice, you need to wash the car clean before coming to pick you up, so that you can have a good face. I will buy you a big portion of pork leg rice now, and make your stomach full of oil. When Grandma heard that it was a small car coming to pick her up, and there would be meat to eat, she made a sound. You are still good at handling things. I won't argue with you. Come pick me up quickly. After hanging up the phone with Grandma, the boxes of warm packs, self-heating hot pots, pre-made meals, and bottled water from the delivery also arrived one after another. In the post-apocalyptic world, Where could you still be picky about freshness and nutrition? Survival is the first priority. I looked again at the high-end nutritional products I brought from there, and it should be enough to survive for a month. Considering that my daughter died of a high fever in the previous life, I quickly ordered all the medicines I could buy. I also purchased some solar power panels at a high price through friends, and instructed the workers to install them properly. There are still some things to buy at the market. I mentally listed the items while grabbing my keys and went out to pick up my mother-in-law. After all, that scene on the other side still needs her to play her part. There are still 8 hours before the temperature drops sharply. I opened the community owner group and sent a message using a secondary account. The recent temperature is very abnormal. I saw some people starting to stock up on supplies again. The reason I took on this role is because I believe saving one person is better than none. Most importantly, I want the fact that Griffin found out about the information beforehand to be meaningless. Who are you? Spreading rumors is illegal. My mother-in-law still hasn't finished the salt she stockpiled last time, and now you're back, but this winter is a bit abnormal. When has it ever gotten down to minus 10 degrees Celsius in our city? Maybe we should also buy a little bit, after all. It's inconvenient to go out when it's cold, so we might as well buy more at once. Seeing that everyone had reacted, I felt relieved and drove to my mother-in-law's house. My mother-in-law looked at me with her hands in her sleeves, making a sour face. I never wanted to see you. You're so thin. You don't look like the type to give birth to a boy. You're not good at taking care of people, always looking so cold and distant. Who do you think you're showing that face to? I put on a flattering face in front of her sisters, took off the gold-plated bracelet I had just bought for 9 yuan and put it on her wrist. Mom, I was once ungrateful. From now on, I will treat you like an ancestor. I have discussed with Griffin. We will let you live in the master bedroom. Don't come back during the spring festival. Spend it with us together. My mother-in-law immediately smiled and winked at her sisters, satisfied, and got into the car with me. All the way, my mother-in-law kept talking non-stop, scolding me from my hair to my heels. Instead of wasting time on your appearance, you should focus on having another son. Don't think you're anything special. Once you're in Griffin's family, you have to follow my rules. I nodded in agreement, while secretly hoping that the rules would be as strict as possible. After dropping off my mother-in-law, I directly threw her several cloth bags onto the master bedroom bed, placed the remaining food in the house on the coffee table, politely asked her to sit on the sofa, and then mysteriously said, Mom, I hid a few braised pork hocks under the liquor cabinet. Don't let anyone else eat them. After finishing all these tasks, I took out my phone and called Griffin, who obviously sounded very impatient on the other end. Didn't I tell you not to call me when you have nothing to do? Can't you understand what I'm saying? I suppressed my nausea and asked hesitantly. Now everyone is talking about stockpiling for the end times. Should we buy some too? Griffin's tone turned harsher. You have no brain. How could you fall for this? Don't bother me anymore. Buy whatever you want. A woman's soft mocking laughter could be heard in the background. Then it was just a dialed tone. I looked at my mother-in-law sitting on the sofa eating happily, with sunflower seeds and chicken bones scattered all over, and I smiled slightly, waving a casual greeting before going to pick up Snow. I checked the time. There were still 5 hours until the end times, and Griffin wouldn't find out the news 4 hours later. At the kindergarten gate, I hugged Snow tightly, crying and kissing her repeatedly, causing my daughter to laugh happily, drawing curious glances from passers-by. In this life, I will definitely protect my beloved daughter well. With Snow in my arms, I went to several markets again, trying to stock up as much as possible according to the list, to avoid my child's emotional issues. I also spent some time going to a snack and toy store, watching Snow jump with joy, and I felt it was all worth it. After everything was done, I avoided the crowd and brought the newly bought items back to my small house in several batches. Then I cooked a big meal, turned on Snow's favorite cartoon, and enjoyed this wonderful moment with my daughter. Suddenly, the phone rang. I looked at it and saw it was 7 p.m. Griffin should know about the apocalypse by now. Griffin's voice on the phone was serious and anxious. Dove, hurry and drive to the entrance of Huayan supermarket. I'll be waiting there. I sighed and said, pretending to be scared and helpless, Honey, I'm sorry. I clumsily scratched the car, and it's now in the repair shop. I can't drive it. Griffin was stunned for a second on the phone. Then a torrent of curses came through. You stupid woman. I'll deal with you when I get back. I timidly replied. I was with Snow when I scratched the car. She was really scared, and I'm taking her to the hospital. I might come back late today. Another round of curses. Then Griffin hung up the phone abruptly. I thought it was time to check how much my news that was leaked in advance had spread. I scrolled through Douyin's local videos and saw many people mocking the elderly for buying excessive supplies. I couldn't help but let out a sneer. Go ahead. I don't believe those dog-and-maid couple without a car can beat those seasoned egg-stealing old ladies. Sure enough, half an hour later, Griffin's call came again, his voice more anxious than before. Dove, you said about stockpiling. Did you buy any? I innocently replied, no, you said not to buy. I thought we still had some food at home, so I listened to you and didn't go. Griffin cursed. When did you ever listen to me like this before? I heard a woman's voice on the other end of the phone, almost crying. What should I do, Griffin? Will I starve by myself later? Griffin's tone instantly softened, and he said to me, I have a distant relative coming to visit me, and they're staying over tonight. Before he could finish, I couldn't help but cheerfully replied, great, Mom is at home. There's a hard dish I prepared for tonight, sure to make you two eat well. The apocalypse officially began. I excitedly turned on my phone, adjusted the video surveillance of the house across the street, opened a bag of chips, and sat cross-legged to slowly watch the showdown between the green tea woman and the wicked mother-in-law. You fucking bitch. You even have the nerve to walk back into the house. In the scene, the mother-in-law was pulling Thorne's hair and pushing her head onto the sofa. The father-in-law had cheated and ran away. And the mother-in-law always strongly despises women like that. After beating Thorne, the mother-in-law wasn't satisfied and pointed at Griffin, scolding, you're just like your damn father, always wanting more than what you have. Thorne's lipstick was smudged, her hair was a mess, and she was crying with a wet face, pleading to the mother-in-law, Auntie, Griffin and I are true love, he's just after your body, and you're just after his stupidity. Thorne's green tea act didn't work on the mother-in-law at all. She scolded while rolling up her sleeves, spitting in Thorne's face. Thorne kept making eye signals to Griffin, but Griffin didn't dare to move a muscle. At this moment, the temperature had dropped to -20 degrees Celsius, and the heating and air conditioning had little effect. The three people in the standoff all shivered at the same time. The mother-in-law didn't say a word and immediately tried to push Thorne out. When she heard Thorne shout, I'm carrying Griffin's child, do you want us both to die? Indeed. The mother-in-law stopped instantly upon hearing her son's words. She turned to look at Griffin, and at this critical moment, Griffin could only nervously nod. The mother-in-law changed her expression instantly, smiling. For her, whether it's a mistress or not, the third party is definitely not her. Morality and face mean nothing compared to the value of her grandson. The mother-in-law told Thorne to lie sideways on the sofa, smiling with a grotesque expression, and still couldn't help but mock me. Look at your butt, it's clearly made for giving birth to a son. Even if Dove comes back tonight, I'll let Griffin sleep with you. It's so cold, don't let my grandson get frozen. I looked at the picture of the mother-in-law on my phone, feeling shocked. When it comes to her own life and death, is the grandson still that important? The mother-in-law smiled and told Griffin to prepare all the hard dishes from the fridge to nourish Thorne, but Griffin dared not. In this apocalyptic world, they hadn't had time to stock up, and the food in the house was eaten one meal at a time. Griffin quickly took the opportunity when the mother-in-law wasn't hitting anyone to sort out the food in the house. Several heavy-flavored chicken leg jerky, dry melon seeds, overly sweet-filled biscuits, and heavy oil and salt dishes like braised chicken with peanuts and wife's lung slices are stored in the refrigerator. At first glance, it looked good, and the mother-in-law was drooling, rushing to put the wife's lung slices on the stove. In the end, they only ate this one dish that night with Griffin's intervention. After they finished eating, their bodies finally warmed up a bit. Thorne sat between the mother-in-law and Griffin, smiling. And the family really seemed to be having a warm and happy time. I can only say, you have a big heart, see how long you can laugh. I put down my phone, got up, and took out the health pot to boil a pot of red date ginger tea to warm up. 30 minutes later, the monitor emitted a loud argument. I put a hot water bag in Snow's bed, made myself a cup of ginger tea, and then continued to watch. I want water. Not this sweet water that makes me thirstier. The mother-in-law, who had just been speaking politely, suddenly became wild and grabbed a bowl of milk tea and poured it over Thorne's head. Thorne was scared by the mother-in-law's unpredictable behavior and started crying. The sticky and sweet milk tea dripped from his wet hair, mixing with his tears, making him look extremely miserable. Thorne cried and reached for Griffin's hand, pouting and saying, Griffin, Auntie seems to not like the milk tea I gave her. This is the only drink I have left. And I didn't even dare to drink it myself. Griffin's eyes still showed a bit of sympathy, but as soon as he met his mother's gaze, he immediately lost his courage, only able to complain weakly, Mom, I don't know when the water pipe will thaw. The water at home is already so little, and you're wasting it. That's really not proper. Upon hearing this, the mother's eyes widened, and she shouted, You and your wife eat well in the city, but when I come, the food is so stingy. And even drinking water is a problem. Do you want to treat your own mother like this? The pressure of the apocalypse was on Griffin's head, and his mother was also being unreasonable, so he couldn't help but get angry. Do you even know what the situation is now? We only have this much food, and you still want to be the empress. The mother hit the table hard and roared back, If there's no food, why don't you go buy some? I just want to drink water. Griffin burst out screaming and pulled his mother to the window. Outside, heavy snow had almost buried the first floor. Even though the electricity was still on, the thermometer in the living room showed the temperature had dropped to -30 degrees. As Thorne approached the window, the milk tea on her head froze, and she quickly stepped back. The mother-in-law finally opened her mouth, looking terrified, and then suddenly collapsed to the ground, crying loudly, "I shouldn't have come here. This is trying to make me die here. Where's Dove? She hasn't come back yet. Tell her to go buy some food." Griffin finally remembered me, his eyes filled with hope, and took out his phone to call me. I took a sip of hot tea, feeling warm all over, and couldn't help but make a sound of comfort. "Dove, where are you?" Griffin, hearing my deliberate swallowing sound, quickly asked. I covered the phone and pretended to sob. "Honey, you finally found me. I and my daughter are trapped in the hospital and can't get out. The heating and water supply in the hospital are still normal for now, but this snow doesn't know when it will stop, and we can't go back." Before Griffin could say anything, the mother-in-law shouted anxiously, "You go buy some food and drinks right away. Don't stay there living your life. The mother-in-law and husband won't serve you anymore." At that moment, my heart was colder than the temperature outside. And my life and my daughter's life weren't as important to her as a glass of water. "I don't feel like dealing with her." I spoke into the phone. "Hello, I can't hear you," and then hung up. Two women were shouting and surrounding Griffin in the surveillance footage. "That girl is just lucky she happened to be stuck in the hospital." "Griffin, why can she have food and drink? I won't accept that." Griffin, annoyed by the noise, said, "Enough," and waved his hand. Turning away to push the two noisy women aside, he looked out at the snowy window and said to his mother, "Mom, while there's still power, go out and get some snow to melt for water to drink." "Why should I go?" His mother put her hand on her hip, glaring at Thorne. "If someone has to go, it should be that outsider. Does she think she can just eat and drink for free here?" Thorne rubbed his stomach and stood in front of his mother, saying, "If I have to go, I won't be responsible for freezing your grandson." Griffin rubbed his forehead, his expression pained, and could only wrap himself in a blanket, holding a bucket and stepping out of the door. Before leaving, he sent me a message for the first time in his life. "Wife, when the snow stops, come back. I miss you and our daughter." I rolled my eyes and deleted this message that annoyed me. A few days passed, and the outdoor temperature dropped to 50 degrees. And the air conditioner outdoor unit had stopped working. Griffin, along with 3 others, sat together wrapped in blankets, looking listless, with thick ice on their eyelashes. The mother-in-law kicked Thorne viciously. "You, go out and find something to eat." Thorne pouted, looked away, and sat still. The mother-in-law got up and pulled Thorne's hair, while using the other hand to pinch her, muttering curses. "I know you only like to eat. Why don't you listen to me? Dove treats me like a grandpa. You little mistress, why are you still putting on airs with me?" Thorne had no chance against the old hag, was being choked by the mother-in-law, and didn't even bother to pretend anymore, flailing his hands and shouting, "You old hag, you eat the most, you have so much energy, your son is about to starve, why don't you go find some food? You're a poisonous woman." Griffin had been exhausted by their constant quarreling, and as he listened to their arguments, he didn't even lift his eyelids. And with disgust, moved to the side, took out his phone and called me again, his voice unusually gentle. "Dove, are you and your daughter okay? When are you coming back?" I yawned, looked at the takeout box I had just finished, and replied lazily, "We're fine, we eat well, drink well, just a bit bored." Griffin was stunned for a few seconds, his teeth almost grinding, and spoke in a cold voice, "You're having such a good time in the hospital. My mom and I are about to starve at home." I feigned surprise and asked, "How come?" "We ate plenty at home, and I even left her favorite pork shank in the wine cabinet." As soon as he heard that, Griffin's eyes immediately lit up and he hung up the phone. I saw him on the monitor rushing toward the wine cabinet, excitedly opening the door, only to find a few clean bones inside. "Where's the pork shank? Why are there only bones left?" "Mom, you secretly ate it." Griffin rushed to his mother's side and shouted angrily, his veins bulging. His mother was stunned by his shout and instinctively slapped Griffin. How dare you shout at your own mother?" Griffin, both hungry and angry, was driven to the edge by the continuous provocation and grabbed his mother's neck fiercely. "I'll teach you to eat secretly. I'll teach you to not care about my life." Thorne looked at the cabinet in confusion, and upon seeing the bones, couldn't hide his resentment towards his mother-in-law, and joined Griffin in scolding her. "Old hag. Even her own son she betrays, she's not fit to be a mother, let her go out to get food. Who told her to secretly eat it behind our backs?" The mother-in-law looked at her son in disbelief, her eyes almost popping out of her head. She kept hitting Griffin's hand to try to break free and explain herself, but she couldn't even say a word, only making muffled sounds. I was watching the surveillance camera, and I couldn't help but open a bag of chips, leaning forward involuntarily, the plot I had set up. Of course, I had to watch it carefully. When the mother-in-law turned red in the face and her strength was fading, Griffin finally let go. He coldly threw a quilt in front of the mother-in-law, his voice icy as he said, "Go get food. Dove said there's some at the hospital, bring it back for me, or you won't be allowed in." The mother-in-law was still catching her breath on the floor, without even a chance to resist, was pulled by the hair by Thorn, who was laughing coldly, and dragged out of the door. No matter how she struggled and screamed, the mother-in-law disappeared from her sight, and with the temperature outside approaching 50 degrees, she wouldn't be able to last half an hour. She didn't lose to the green tea and white lotus type, but she lost to her own inhumane son. The mother-in-law's wailing and knocking filled my ears, overlapping with my past self, causing the hatred in my heart to surge again. If it weren't for her, Snow wouldn't have had a fever, and wouldn't have died in my arms in despair. Thorn forcefully closed the door and then clapped his hands. Still somewhat worried, he said, "Griffin, without one mouth, we can just hold on for 2 more days, but this isn't a solution. What's next?" Griffin had indirectly killed his own mother, and morality no longer held any restraint over him. "Dove is doing well in the hospital." Griffin's voice was icy, and I inexplicably shivered. Griffin took out his phone to navigate, preparing to search for the optimal route to the hospital. Suddenly, in the navigation's history, he saw addresses like Hengen Building Materials Market, Xicheng Solar Energy Service Center. Griffin frowned, and against his better judgment, opened a food delivery platform, where he also saw a large number of orders placed a few hours ago. Griffin seemed to have an idea, and his chest heaved violently with anger, biting his teeth as he called me for a video call, while waiting for me to answer. He paced back and forth in the living room, muttering to himself, "Damn it, Dove, if I find out you're behind this, I'll kill you." As I watched Griffin's furious face on the monitor, I suddenly smacked my forehead. Oh no, I was too rushed and forgot that I share several accounts with him. I didn't dare to answer the video call, and Griffin sent me several messages in a row. "Honey, where are you? Mom is in bad shape. If you don't come back and bring me something to eat, I won't make it either. Please answer the phone. I miss you and our daughter. You wouldn't let Snow grow up without a father, would you?" He kept sending messages, so I just put my phone on silent. Seeing that I didn't respond, he kept flipping through his phone, then curled his lips and laughed unusually in the living room. "Griffin, why are you laughing?" Thorn looked at him, trembling with fear. "We're saved." Griffin laughed wickedly while looking out the window. At the same time, I also received a message from him. "Dove, I know where you are hiding. Get your food and drinks ready, and welcome your husband." My heart skipped a beat, and I quietly went to the kitchen to hide a fruit knife in my pocket. At this moment, all the household appliances chimed and turned off, and the entire power system finally crashed. Everyone in the community who was still alive was crying out in helplessness, accompanied by the howling north wind, making it especially bleak on this extremely cold snowy day. I couldn't check Griffin's location through the surveillance anymore, so I just held the cup and stood by the window to observe the outside. Sure enough, 2 black figures jumped out from the second-floor window of the opposite unit. It was obviously Griffin and his partner. Because they were dressed too thickly and moved quite clumsily, the snow was too deep. It was only a short distance of 10 meters, but now they were moving forward with great difficulty. When I saw them halfway, Griffin seemed to have his legs stuck in the snow and couldn't pull it out. Thorn slowly moved over and stretched out her hands, struggling to pull him out. She pulled too hard, and Griffin managed to get out, but Thorn fell to the ground immediately. Thorn reached out her hand to ask Griffin to pull her up, but Griffin looked fierce and, instead of helping, lifted his foot and stepped over Thorn's back. When Thorn fell face down, her face was full of fear. She didn't have time to react before she was stepped into the snow. I saw her struggling with her limbs, but Griffin didn't even look back. After 15 minutes, Griffin finally reached this unit, and Thorn, 5 meters away, was already motionless in the snow. A person who doesn't care about his wife and children, who abandoned his mother, how could Thorn have the confidence that he would take care of himself in a life-or-death moment? I looked on with a sneer, tightening my grip on the dagger. "Dove, open the door, it's Griffin." I was startled by the urgent knocking at the door, staring seriously at the entrance without saying a word. "Dove, I know you're in there. You must have stockpiled a lot of supplies. Open the door." Griffin's voice was approaching a plea. "Dove, please save me. I'm alone outside, hungry and cold. You don't want Snow to lose his father, do you? Snow, I'm your father. Open the door for your father." Griffin started to roar, his voice getting louder and louder, and Snow, who was playing with toys, timidly came over. "Mom, is it Dad outside?" Griffin heard Snow's voice, and his knocking on the door became more intense. "Snow, it's me, it's Daddy. Open the door." I pulled Snow close to me and crouched down to ask her gently, "Snow, do you want Daddy to come in?" Snow looked at me with wide eyes. I felt both nervous and guilty, thinking about how to explain to my daughter why I didn't save Daddy. Before Snow could say anything, Griffin shouted from outside, "Snow, you wanted to go to the amusement park, right? Let Daddy in, and I'll take you. I'll also buy you fried chicken." Snow, hearing this, suddenly became teary-eyed and cried in an aggrieved voice. "Daddy is a liar. I don't believe you. You always take Thorn to bully me. You eat the chicken skin, Thorn eats the meat, and I have to suck the remaining bones. If I don't suck them, you hit me." Snow's accusation pierced my heart like a sharp blade. The treasure in my hands was being insulted behind my back. My anger flared up, and through the door I shouted, "Griffin, you're not human. I will never let you in. You should die outside." Griffin's voice was full of panic. "No, Snow. Thorn's aunt has already been thrown out. She should die outside. Can you and your mom forgive me?" Snow buried her head in my arms, and I held her tightly. 10 minutes passed, but I still didn't open the door. Griffin finally lost his composure and, from somewhere, found a heavy object to constantly hit the door. Another 10 minutes passed, but the door remained unmoved. Griffin's strength gradually faded, and although he kept shouting, his actions with his hands became noticeably lighter. "Dove. I know I was wrong about Thorn. Please forgive me. Once this cold spell is over, we still have to live together. We can start over, can't we?" I couldn't help but mock him. "Who gave you the confidence that I would start over with you? I'd rather buy a male dog." Griffin's voice outside the door grew weaker, and his knocking became lifeless and gentle, barely audible. "Save me." At that moment, Snow suddenly brought a small stool and carefully opened the cat eye of the inner security door. Snow actually slowly pushed a thin chicken bone out. With a sweet and cold voice, she said, "Eat it, Dad." Then she shot a small cup of milk out through the cat eye with a water gun. I quickly worriedly took Snow down and saw Griffin like a dog, licking the milk on the door. However, the temperature was too low, and as he licked, his tongue stuck to the iron door. Griffin painfully knocked on the door, only able to make helpless whining sounds. In order to survive, he cried with tears, using all his strength to pull his head back, tearing off 2 layers of skin from his tongue, and his mouth immediately started bleeding, crying out in pain. The pain also made him regain some consciousness. He swallowed his own blood and then started smashing the door with a heavy object. The security door started to shake, and outside, Griffin laughed maniacally. "Dove, when I get in, I'll kill you. I'll throw you down in front of Snow." I quickly covered Snow's ears and comforted her, telling her not to be afraid, that Mom was here. I looked around quickly and saw the water gun in Snow's hand, then suddenly ran towards the toilet. I took the suction pipe and the pressure pump and aimed them at the peephole. "Snow, start the water." Cold water was sprayed outwards with pressure. It sprayed onto Griffin, immediately freezing him, causing him to throw away whatever he was holding and quickly move away from the water gun. He was completely soaked and had no strength left to struggle. All his energy was focused on resisting the cold. Griffin lay lifelessly outside the door, his back stuck to the iron door. He had no more strength to tear it open, and he looked down as if accepting his fate, waiting for death. Within 10 minutes, there was no sound left outside the door, but I didn't go to check. The extreme cold had not passed. Survival was still the top priority. A month and a half later, the temperature stabilized at -60 degrees. And transportation and electricity were finally partially restored. Under the unified notification of the rescue team, I and a few survivors slowly opened the door, and Griffin's body fell forward stiffly, with one of his hands still holding a chicken bone that had been gnawed to pieces. I calmly gathered the remaining supplies and followed the rescue team with Snow to the survivors' base. There, we began our new life. Story 2. When the zombie virus broke out, my boyfriend's family pushed me into a horde of zombies, where I was torn apart. After being reborn, my family and I hid away on a secluded island, starting a Robinson Crusoe-like existence. I enjoyed a hot pot while watching through the surveillance cameras how my boyfriend's family descended into a brutal fight for survival, digging their own graves, of course. Being the kind-hearted person I am, I left them plenty of food, canned herring, Bimania herbal tea, and fishy-smelling herbs that should keep them fed for many days. On the 10th day of the zombie siege, Calvin's mom made porridge that was way too thin, leaving me tossing and turning from hunger in the middle of the night. I tiptoed out of bed, gently pushing open my door, planning to sneak to the living room for some biscuits to appease my hunger. As I passed by the guest room, I noticed a light still on inside. Calvin had mentioned that his parents were into healthy living. Were they still awake at this late hour? I heard intermittent noises coming from the crack in the door. A proverb says, 2 tigers cannot share one mountain. Calvin's mom, Mrs. Lou, said shrilly, capturing my attention. What did she mean by that? This villa belonged to my family, and just 10 days ago, they had come over uninvited to visit just as the outbreak occurred. It was my family who had taken them in. I clenched my fists in anger. Keep your voice down. It was Calvin's dad, David. I found a packet of rat poison. We'll put it in the porridge tomorrow. We won't drink it, but they will, and it'll kill them. Son, don't go soft on that girl. Calvin was there too. My heart tightened. He didn't say a word, which seemed like he agreed. To achieve great things, one must be ruthless, even towards their closest kin. My husband is truly a man of great ambition. I trembled with anger and fear as I listened to these words at the door. I had to hold myself back from making any noise. No, I needed to quickly inform my parents and discuss our next steps. I slowly backed away, intending to quietly make my way to the stairs and up to my parents' room on the 4th floor. Damn it, drank too much porridge tonight. I need to pee, Mrs. Lou said as she pushed open the door, and I was caught off guard. Facing her directly, in the darkness, Mrs. Lou's face, baring her sharp teeth, was even more terrifying than any zombie I had seen in the past few days. After a moment of silence, she stared at me intently. Wendy, you heard everything, didn't you? I didn't hear anything, Auntie. I tried to deny it, but my trembling voice probably gave me away. I saw Calvin and David closing in, cornering me on the 3rd floor balcony, with a horde of zombies gathering below. With all my might, I yelled towards the 4th floor, "They're poisoning us. They're going to kill us." Calvin rushed over and covered my mouth. I could only mumble, and in desperation, I kicked over a flower pot on the balcony, hoping to alert my parents. Son, push her over, she definitely knows too much. Calvin hesitated as he looked down at the eager zombies below, but David was already pulling me towards the edge. I screamed for my parents as I fell from the 3rd floor, clutching desperately at the railing. The boy I had loved for 4 years, whom I once thought was everything to me, looked down at me coldly, prying my fingers loose one by one. As I hit the ground hard, intense pain shot through my limbs. My legs might have been broken, and as I struggled to get up, I couldn't move. I lay there listening to the hissing sounds of the approaching zombies. Please, don't come any closer. What could be more terrifying and despairing than knowing you're about to be devoured? The zombies slowly began to gather around me. They swarmed around me. Intense, unimaginable agony radiating from my limbs. More than a dozen zombies tore at my flesh from various angles, yanking at my innards. I let out a chilling scream that I couldn't have imagined coming from myself. They were eating me. The pain was excruciating, but gradually, it subsided. It hurt so much, I suddenly woke up, drenched in sweat. The pain from the dream felt disturbingly real, unlike any I had ever endured before. I gasped for air, my heart still racing from the nightmare. Only 50 meters to the destination. What's wrong, Wendy? I realized I was leaning on the passenger side of my compact car as Calvin parked it by the roadside. He turned to look at me with a concerned expression. It's time to get out. I looked at him, then carefully felt my hands, my legs. My body seemed intact, untouched. What's wrong? He reached up to touch my face, and I reflexively pulled away. What the heck? He frowned slightly. Today is the day we meet my parents. Don't be grumpy. Right, the date. I checked my phone, and indeed, today was January 4th. The zombie apocalypse was set to break out on January 14th, just 10 days away. Had I been reborn, I was numb, unable to accept it as I got out of the car. Calvin pulled me along as we walked toward his old apartment building, my mind spinning numbly. In my previous life, I actually hadn't met Calvin's parents as planned. Instead, on January 14th, his family had come directly to my house, originally. My parents didn't agree with me meeting Calvin's parents so soon, saying it wasn't the right time, so I had prepared gifts for Calvin to give them before heading straight home. This time, for some reason, my parents agreed to the meeting, leading to our drive to Calvin's place. I had fallen asleep in the car, and that's when I was reborn. If I had met them earlier, knowing what peculiar people they were, perhaps the later meetings wouldn't have happened. Still dazed, I inadvertently climbed 7 floors, and Calvin opened the door to his home. Mom, Dad, I'm back. The apartment was so small it took me aback. The narrow 2-bedroom felt smaller than my own room, difficult to navigate with a faint musty odor and walls covered in mold and grime. Calvin's mother, Mrs. Lou, sat on the sofa cracking sunflower seeds. She sized me up as I entered. You see people and don't even greet them. Typical of someone from a small household. Calvin quickly tried to smooth things over with 2 boxes of bird's nest I had bought. Mom, this is specially bought by Wendy. She spat out a shell, her expression softening slightly, then tilted her chin up and said, Hungry, let's have dinner. The narrow living room quickly filled with a foldable dining table covered with an old tablecloth, displaying a total of 3 dishes and 1 soup, braised chicken wings with only 3 pieces, stir-fried bok choy, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, and seaweed egg drop soup, all served in greasy iron dishes. Except for the stir-fried bok choy, it was clear that the other dishes were leftovers. Calvin's father, David, sauntered in leisurely. He wore an old-fashioned white shirt and old-fashioned glasses. carrying himself with an air of moral superiority and respectability. I stared blankly at all of this, my mind still not caught up, mechanically repeating to Calvin's father, "You see people and don't even greet them," typical of someone from a small household. Lu Jinhua and David were taken aback by my comment, clearly not expecting such words from me. They paused awkwardly and then pretended not to hear. Calvin gestured for me to sit down. The small folding dining table already made it cramped for his family of 3, and with me, it was even more so. Lu Jinhua, trying to smile, ended up looking worse than if she had been crying. "These are just simple home-cooked dishes, nothing fancy like what you have at your place." Calvin quickly tugged at his mother's sleeve. "My dear son, Auntie Hazel's daughter just got back from the UK. Honestly, a family of their scholarly pedigree is more fitting for us. A suitable bride for our household," emphasized Lu Jinhua, stressing the words scholarly pedigree. I glanced at her and remained silent. Lu Jinhua must have thought I was an easy target as she looked at me contentedly and said, "Wendy, although your family has some money, you are still just small-time merchants. As the saying goes, there's a hierarchy among scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants for a reason. Our family comes from a line of officials, to be honest. Your family is really out of their league in trying to associate with us." David coughed smugly. If I remember correctly, Calvin's father only became a section chief in his 50s, and his mother has always been a housewife. I glanced at Calvin, whose face bore a striking resemblance to the celebrity Wu Fanfan. Yes, that face, combined with his tall stature and long legs, had once made me utterly infatuated due to my love for attractive faces, but it's not impossible to marry above your station. "You're so thin, I don't even know if you can bear children. Try to have a son first." Lu Jinhua grew increasingly smug and couldn't stop herself. "Also, since you're the only daughter in your family, doesn't that mean your family line is ending with you? When you get married, shouldn't all your family's wealth come with you? That villa of yours will be for me and his father to live in, and the 2 downtown apartments near good schools will be where you and Calvin live. But they must be in Calvin's name, that's the bare minimum." "Mom, why bring this up the first time we meet? Let's eat," Calvin interjected. I couldn't help but continue the conversation. "Oh, why should his name be added?" Lu Jinhua's voice grew louder and sharper, clearly displeased. "Wendy, don't be ungrateful. You're the only daughter in your family, and it's ending with you. Once you marry into our family, naturally everything should come with you. You should also learn to respect and care for your in-laws and manage the household." Watching her lips greasy from the food, lecturing me and then contentedly sucking on a chicken leg, I recalled her past life's attempt to poison my entire family and her pushing me off a balcony. The anger from 2 lifetimes surged within me. "Oh, I guess I am that ungrateful." With that, I grabbed the tablecloth and flipped the table. Lu Jinhua was covered in food, dripping with sauce, screaming shrilly. David had a bunch of green vegetables stuck to his head, his face red with anger. I had already grabbed the bird's nest soup and other gifts I brought and swiftly ran out of Calvin's house. Everything went smoothly. I tossed the gifts back into the back seat of the car, which my parents had given me when I started working. Today, Calvin wanted to practice driving, so he had driven us here. I was starting the car when Calvin caught up to me. He'd been sitting next to me during the meal and hadn't been hit much, but there was still some oil on him. Holding back his anger, he knocked on my car window. "Wendy, what happened today? My mom might have been a bit harsh, but how could you react like that? Come back with me and apologize." I glanced at him, his face so handsome it was almost perfect, but now it just made me feel sick. I slightly rolled down the car window and said to him, "Let's break up." Then I slammed on the gas and sped away. Calvin, caught off guard, stumbled and nearly fell. In the rearview mirror, I saw him running, trying to catch up, but he soon became a small dot in the distance and then disappeared. As I drove, I pondered. There were only 10 days left before the zombie outbreak. 10 days were enough to accomplish a lot, like fortifying the villa, stocking up on weapons and food, and maybe even planting some vegetables and buying chickens. I had read quite a few articles on Jihu about stockpiling for a zombie apocalypse. What's the first step in stockpiling? Heading to the supermarket, I quickly navigated to the largest supermarket near my home, looking at the vast array of food, and remembering how hungry I felt in my dreams after days without food. I swallowed hard. First, I loaded several boxes of bottled water into my cart, followed by my favorite snacks, instant noodles, snail noodles, pasta, self-heating hot pots, chicken legs, beef, pork, and more. I swept them into the cart unapologetically until it was overflowing. Only then did I stop. I jogged to the cashier, paid with a scan, and pushed my cart to my car, carefully placing each item into the trunk. After unloading, I ran back to the supermarket and repeated the process several times until my car's trunk, back seat, and even the passenger seat were filled with food. Satisfied, I drove away. 10 minutes later, I parked in the garage at home and struggled to carry 2 bags inside. As soon as I opened the door, I shouted, "Mom, Dad, come help with the stuff in the car. What did you buy? Why so much?" Mom asked suspiciously. I looked at her seriously, then at Dad, and decided to explain. This might be hard to believe. "Did you break up with that toady?" both my parents exclaimed in surprise. They had always disdainfully referred to Calvin as toady, thinking he was reaching beyond his means. "Oh. That's news too, but there's something else." "That's great." Mom rubbed her hands together excitedly. "Let's set off some firecrackers to dispel the bad luck and make that toady hop as far away as he can." "Listen to me, we have something to tell you too," Dad interrupted, banging on the table. "You might find this hard to believe. Listen to me, in 10 days, the world will face a zombie outbreak," Dad blurted out before me. As I stood there, dumbfounded, he continued, "I've already been through it once. Last time, we even invited Toadie's family over. Your mom and I watched that old toad push you down the stairs. Somehow, I woke up. It felt like a dream, but here we are, back to this morning. So we need to prepare in advance and stay away from Toadie." Tears welled up in our eyes as we all said it together. "That's great you remember too," I said, nodding vigorously, my excitement making my tongue twist. On the way back, I already figured it out. First, we stock up on supplies from the supermarket. No, we order online. If anyone asks, we'll say we're starting a supermarket. Then we'll just stay in this villa, eat hot pot, and be merry even when the zombies come. Tomorrow, I'll order some seeds online. We can grow vegetables on the rooftop and even raise chickens. Mom and Dad, in unison, why not just go to the wholesale market? Me, hesitating, Dad, let's not just hide at home. When the apocalypse hits, people will come looking for supplies, and we could all get caught. Besides, our little garden is only a few square meters. What crops are we growing? The rooster that crowed in the morning was swiftly taken away. Me, hesitantly, after all this time, do you guys have any good ideas? Mom, have you forgotten what your dad does? His company has been developing a new project recently. Have you heard about it? At this, I put down what I was holding, took a sip of water, and asked, "What project?" Mom smiled mistily and pulled out a thick proposal, the cover emblazoned with the words, "Island Joy Project." The Island Joy Project is my father's company's latest development on a deserted island, ongoing for nearly a year. The project is located on an island about an hour's flight from City X, originally an undeveloped tiny island, covering an area of about 0.68 square kilometers. It will feature vegetable gardens, orchards, chicken farms, restaurants, hotels, and other leisure facilities. Visitors can dine, stay overnight, pick crops, feed chickens, fish, barbecue, and enjoy farm-style activities. They can also partake in various seaside activities nearby, such as speedboating. Most of the restaurant and barbecue ingredients will come directly from the island's own farms or the sea. My parents suggested we could transform the already constructed Island Joy project into our apocalypse fortress. So far, there's no evidence that zombies can swim, and since the island is surrounded by sea on all sides, it naturally keeps the zombies at bay. Since it's a newly developed deserted island, it's not even marked on the map, which is perfect for hiding from other human dangers, not just zombies. I was so excited I jumped up. Could there be a more perfect stronghold for the apocalypse? Now, the most important thing is to retrofit the island and stock up. Once we've prepared, we plan to trick my grandparents, my aunt's family, and my uncle's family into coming to the island. My maternal grandparents have passed away. My parents, once architects and now owners of a construction company, are personally revising the blueprints. This afternoon, they will head to the island to start the modifications and repairs, and me, I'm in charge of stocking up, with the tasks divided. I moved the items from the car into the house, feeling ravenous. The sensation of a burning stomach from hunger in my past life returned, and I immediately drove to a nearby snack street. I went straight to my favorite sauté noodle stall, ordering a load of toppings: abalone, oysters, lobster, squid, fresh shrimp, pork, duck blood, duck tendons, tofu, almost one of everything. The stall owner was stunned. When served, the bowl was piled so high with ingredients it was nearly overflowing. Full of aromatic spices and paired with a rich sauté soup base, I devoured the large bowl deliciously. Full and slightly drowsy, I stepped out for a latte, adding plenty of sugar and cream, and drank it with satisfaction. Truly sweet and delicious. Feeling full is truly wonderful. Then I drove to the wholesale market in the suburbs. The wholesale market was bustling with people loading up trucks with bulk purchases. No amount of shopping I did would draw attention. First on my mind was food. While the island could support fishing, animal rearing, and crop planting, we still needed storable food and spices. Next were daily necessities, bathing products, toilet paper, sanitary pads, etc., also warm clothing, blankets, and more. Not knowing how long this virus might last, and being a hoarding enthusiast, I planned to stock up as much as possible. On my first shopping trip, I carefully approached the staff, explained my intentions, and ordered various flavored canned fruits, 50 cases of peach, 20 pineapple, 20 strawberry, 20 bayberry, and 10 cases of other assorted fruits, 50 cases of luncheon meat, 50 cases of beef, 50 cases of chicken, 100 cases of compressed biscuits, 100 cases of various flavored milk powders, 50 cases of honey, 50 cases of pasta, 100 cases of various flavored drinks, 50 cases of various chocolates. Here's the translated content: 20 boxes each of pork cuts and beef jerky, 20 boxes of Sichuan-style hot pot base, 20 boxes of assorted flavored potato chips, 20 boxes of various flavored instant noodles, 100 boxes of baijiu, Chinese liquor, 20 boxes of tea, 20 boxes of dried bamboo shoots, 20 boxes of assorted nuts, 20 boxes of various preserved fruits, 20 boxes each of different condiments including cooking oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, sugar, MSG, chili, and Sichuan peppercorns. I purchased a particularly large amount of salt, totaling 200 boxes, as it has many uses beyond being an indispensable seasoning, such as making saline solutions, 500 bags each of vacuum-packed rice and flour, household items, 100 boxes each of shampoo, shower gel, conditioner, toothbrushes, toothpaste, and soap, 500 boxes each of toilet paper and paper towels, 200 boxes of sanitary pads, 20 boxes of towels and bath towels, 100 sets of quilts and bedding sets, 200 sets each of various clothing items, socks, underwear, and bras in different sizes, 50 sets of kitchenware including pots, pans, and utensils. After placing the order, I instructed the staff to deliver the goods to the specified address on the morning of the third day, paid the deposit, left my phone number, and then drove off to the fresh market, being somewhat conservative in my purchases this time: 200 pounds of fish, 200 pounds each of pork, beef, and chicken, 100 whole chickens and ducks, 50 pounds each of easily storable vegetables like potatoes, Chinese cabbage, sweet potatoes, and cauliflower. I bought a few other types of vegetables in small quantities, all to be delivered to the specified address in 3 days. After a busy day, I refueled my car, devoured 2 hamburgers at McDonald's, and received a call from my parents, who mentioned they were busy renovating and refurbishing an island for the next few days and reminded me of a few things. By the time I finished, it was late, and the stores were closed, so I reluctantly ended my shopping spree and headed home. Once home, I couldn't rest early but started searching on my computer for supplies needed for survival in a post-apocalyptic world and carefully categorized them. I chewed on my pen, thinking that there was still too little time, and wondered about the progress of my parents' renovations. Eventually, I fell asleep at my computer desk. Zombie virus outbreak countdown, 9 days. The next day, I woke up with back pain, but couldn't afford to rest. After hastily eating something, I was about to head to the market when I suddenly received a call from my grandmother. "Wendy, it's been a long time since you visited your grandparents. I've made your favorite braised chicken. When will you come to eat?" Braised chicken is my grandparents' way of saying we miss you. Thinking of the last time when I couldn't contact my grandparents who were alone in their old house, my nose tingled with sadness. "Grandma, this time, our whole family must be together." Recalling a recent family meeting discussing the terrifying rumors of zombies, something one wouldn't believe without experiencing it firsthand, I replied, "Grandma, in a few days, my parents are planning to take you to the newest island resort. Wait for us to pick you up. I need to buy some equipment for the island in the next few days, and I'm heading to the market soon." The market, excited by a topic they were familiar with, my grandmother's voice rose. "Your grandparents have been farming for decades. We can give you some advice." Unable to refuse Grandma and feeling their advice made sense, I drove to the suburbs in the afternoon to pick up my grandparents and then headed to the seed store. My grandparents, having farmed for decades and now growing things out of interest at home, were a wealth of knowledge on what crops to grow, which fertilizers to use, and the best seed varieties, making our seed shopping much more efficient. 10 packets each of seeds for onions, garlic, ginger, and cilantro, 10 packets each for various green vegetables like water spinach, sweet potato leaves, lettuce, baby bok choy, and Chinese cabbage, 10 packets each for commonly consumed vegetables like tomatoes, green beans, chilies, white radishes, carrots, eggplants, cauliflower, potatoes, and sweet potatoes, 10 packets each for fruits like strawberries, cherries, passion fruit, grapes, and dragon fruit, 100 saplings each for various fruit trees including peach, apple, bayberry, and mango trees. That's too much. Grandpa waved his hands disapprovingly. We can't plant all these in 10 seasons. Let's buy more next time, Grandpa. Transportation isn't convenient on the island. But the seeds are well preserved and can last for years, I said playfully. Grandpa didn't say much after that and continued to help me select seeds. It rains a lot on the island, so we can grow rice for 3 seasons. I then bought 500 packets of rice seeds, 100 packets of wheat seeds, and 100 packets of corn seeds, just as Dad had instructed. I also purchased 500 packets of fertilizer, 50 packets/cans of various nutrients needed for planting, and 500 cans of insecticide. Luckily, I had Grandpa and Grandma with me. They reminded me to buy 20 sets of farming tools and automated equipment. At noon, I took Grandpa and Grandma out for a light Cantonese tea meal, and in the afternoon, we continued our major shopping spree. We picked out 100 chicken chicks, 100 ducklings, 100 baby rabbits, 50 piglets, and 20 lambs, all carefully selected by Grandpa and Grandma. I also bought 100 packets of grass seeds for the rabbits, as well as wooden boards, fences, pig troughs, and chicken troughs from nearby stores. I arranged for everything to be delivered in 2 days. In the evening, we enjoyed braised chicken at Grandpa and Grandma's house. I held their hands and repeatedly asked them to join me on the island in 5 days. Before driving home, I also invited my aunt and uncle's family to spend the weekend on the island for some leisure time. Initially, my workaholic uncle refused, but eventually, my cousin persuaded him with her playful charms. 8 days until the zombie virus outbreak, Mom and Dad sent me a long list in the morning of additional items needed on the island. I first rushed to the electronics store to buy all the appliances listed by Dad, ordering dozens of air conditioners, refrigerators, large freezers, washing machines, and TVs, as well as 50 surveillance systems. Passing by a shop specializing in high-end telescopic equipment, I had a sudden inspiration and went in to order 10 high-magnification, high-definition telescopes with stands, arranging for delivery as usual. In the afternoon, I hurried to the construction materials market, where I bought all the items on Mom's list, including tempered glass, explosion-proof glass, timber, and electrical wiring. That evening, after downing a few cans of Red Bull, I visited 10 different pharmacies in turn, purchasing 50 boxes of each household medicine, including cold medicine, fever reducers, stomach medicine, anti-inflammatory drugs, blood pressure medication, emergency heart pills, vitamins, diarrhea medicine, and gauze, as well as 50 each of thermometers and blood pressure monitors. After parking the car in the garage and dragging 3 large bags of medicine into the house, I saw a familiar figure. Wasn't that my boyfriend? Oh no, my ex-boyfriend. His handsome face looked somewhat haggard, but his posture was still upright. The stubble on his face added a touch of rugged beauty. I swallowed hard, slapped myself, and couldn't help but compliment myself. This is the kind of face that a love-struck brain would adore. Wendy, I've given you a few days to think, Calvin said coldly. I was embarrassed to say that I had been so busy stocking up that I couldn't feel the pain of love. I replied coldly. I made it very clear. We've already broken up. I don't believe it. Calvin looked incredulous, then softened his tone. Because of my mom, right? She's blunt but kind-hearted, kinder than anyone. I was speechless and explained, I've thought it over these past few days, and I really don't like you anymore. Calvin looked incredulous. As I walked past him, he seemed hesitant to follow, perhaps feeling his pride was hurt. At that moment, he saw the 3 large bags of medicine, and in shock, tremblingly pointed at me, saying, Wendy, I get it. You must have a terminal illness, and that's why you want to break up. You don't want to drag me down. I didn't have time to explain further, simply stating, I'm not sick, let me explain again, I just don't like you anymore, we're not suitable, I want to break up with you. Calvin stopped me, his eyes brimming with emotion like a deer. Ugh, I used to think it was because he loved me, but now I realize he looks at braised pork with the same deep affection, it's just his nature. I pushed him aside and went straight into the house after swiping through the security behind me. I could hear his agonizing roar reminiscent of Ma Jingtao. No, it's because you're terminally ill. You want me to give up hope? No, rest assured. No, I won't. After entering the house, I packed the medicines into a large box. When I turned around, I saw Calvin still standing outside the villa's fence, his handsome face paired with his agonizing cries and a faint deep expression. Looking like something out of an old chimney drama, I sighed and hurriedly activated the surveillance inside and outside the house, double-locked the door, still somewhat worried he might harm me. After all was set, I organized the list of purchases made over the past few days and sent a copy to my parents. I hadn't bought the weapons yet, but I decided to send a batch of goods to the island tomorrow. The zombie virus outbreak is T-7 days, this morning. I was relieved to see that Calvin had already left. Still uneasy, I checked the surveillance to confirm that he had left shortly after yesterday and hadn't returned. Feeling reassured, I headed to the dock with the medicines. My uncle was already waiting for me at the dock and smiled when he saw me. "Wendy, you're pretty early today." Managed to get up. I scratched my head sheepishly. My uncle was running a small shipping company and was personally navigating the boat to the island. As we didn't want others to know about this route, he seemed relaxed, obviously unaware of the real purpose behind my parents and my trip, thinking he was just helping out with shipping. Soon, the first batch of my ordered goods arrived. Several dockworkers helped with packing and loading the ship. My uncle and I rolled up our sleeves and joined in. Even so, it took a whole morning and noon to load all the goods. In the afternoon, my uncle and I set sail for the island. I sat next to him and learned how to steer the boat, even successfully navigating a short distance under his guidance. Eventually, we reached the island. Neither my uncle nor I had been to the island before. It was not very large, had lush vegetation, and the scenery was pleasant, quite a suitable place for a relaxing vacation. The weather was nice today, and our parents who came to meet us looked tanned and thinner, with dark circles under their eyes, indicating that they had been working hard these past few days to transform our living space into a doomsday fortress. I felt a pang of sympathy. Led by my parents, we walked through the dense woods, following a complex route, until we reached the green-painted, inconspicuous outer walls of the resort. "This vacation manor is really unnoticeable. You can't tell at first glance," my uncle remarked, unaware of the real reason. Of course, I couldn't tell him the true purpose. The manor was well hidden among the trees, making it difficult to notice even if someone came to the island. We used a truck to transport the goods from the boat to the warehouse, which was converted from several unfinished buildings. There was also a former farm-to-table restaurant's cold storage on the island, perfect for storing the fresh meat, vegetables, etc. I had purchased. Together, we managed to set up pens for pigs, chickens, sheep, and rabbits, and moved the restless animals into their new homes. Only then did we breathe a sigh of relief. We kept busy until midnight, and both my uncle and I stayed on the island. Zombie virus outbreak T-6 in 5 days. These 2 days have been extremely busy as the construction projects on the island were nearly completed. My parents paid the construction crew 5 times the usual wages plus a bonus of 5 months' salary, urging them to go home early. They also fabricated a rumor that the epidemic would worsen in a few days, advising them to postpone looking for work, stock up on supplies, and take precautions. Many workers had their own farms back home and found the advice sensible. They returned to X City and booked tickets to go back to their hometowns. The construction team was contracted from outside the area, so it was good to let them go home early to reunite with their families. My parents and I also sent similar warning messages to our relatives and friends, earnestly advising them multiple times. Some people didn't take it seriously, but most prepared themselves, adopting the attitude that it's better to believe the threat exists than to dismiss it. News of a biting incident in Nanchang appeared, and online comments started suggesting it might be a precursor to a zombie virus outbreak, though it didn't attract much attention from the majority. Therefore, I leveraged my skills as a programmer, using my free time and spoofed IPs to spread numerous anonymous messages online. In the evening, the construction crew left the small island with us on my uncle's cargo ship. With 4 days left until the zombie virus outbreak, we continued to stock up separately. I bought 30 fishing kits so we could fish on the island later, and I also picked up various other household items like scissors, knives, matches, as well as notebooks and pencils to pass the time. I also visited the bookstore to buy books on outdoor survival, agriculture, aquaculture, fishing, fitness, martial arts, and mental health, and bought some fitness equipment too. In a post-apocalyptic world, maintaining a strong body is crucial. I visited several stores for these items because time was tight and the items were limited. I chose not to wait for delivery and instead carried everything home myself. That night, my parents and I gathered back at home. I displayed the items I had bought, packing several large boxes. My mother showed what she had acquired today. She had converted most of our cash into gold bars. She opened the safe, and the room was filled with dazzling light, which nearly blinded me. Excited, I almost knelt down to call her mom before remembering she was indeed my mom, which calmed me down immediately. My father also opened several large boxes revealing various sizes of long and short blades. including samurai swords suitable for chopping zombies, which reminded me of the sword-wielding characters from The Walking Dead, and small sharp knives for personal carry. In other boxes, there were brand new crossbows and bolts, 20 sets in total. The last few boxes contained dozens of shiny shotguns and bullets, which left my mother and me speechless. It took me a moment to muster, "Dad, you're too incredible. How did you manage to get all this, inappropriately?" The doorbell rang at that moment. We quickly stashed away the items, and from my surveillance camera, I saw Calvin and his mother, Lu Jinhua, stubbornly at our door. I overheard them whispering through the monitor, "Son, that girl won't last long, right? She's always loved me. It makes no sense for her to suddenly break up with me. I saw her buying a lot of medicine, and she looks unwell with severe dark circles. She must be terminally ill. This toady really has a frog's brain. That's good for us. You should marry her quickly, have children, and since she won't live much longer, neither will her parents. Eventually, all their property will be ours, but she's ignoring me now. Just cajole her. A young girl will come around. I'll help you woo her. If she ignores us today, we'll come back tomorrow. We'll keep showing up every day." They seemed like wolves that had latched onto a piece of fat meat. Unwilling to let go easily, not wanting them to discover what we were up to, I reluctantly opened the door. Lu Jinhua glanced enviously at the decorations in our small garden and tried to step inside, but I stopped her at the door. "Wendy, I may be sharp-tongued but I have a soft heart. Those who know me understand that I'm truly a good person," she said. Calvin nodded incessantly beside her. I looked sadly at Calvin, then at Lu Jinhua, and humbly replied, "Auntie, I have my faults too. It's wonderful that you can forgive me. That's what a sensible child would say," Lu Jinhua said with a greasy smile. "Where are your parents? Are you free today? Let's discuss our wedding plans," I suggest. I quickly nod in agreement. Yes, after we get married. I want to have a son soon, cook and clean for you, and take care of uncle and aunt. But what?" Calvin anxiously continues. "I don't care about your illness. I speak seriously. It's not that. Getting married is a big deal. My parents suggest that you come to our house at 3 in the afternoon the day after tomorrow. They picked this auspicious time. Before then, we must not see each other, otherwise," I whisper mysteriously, "it will ruin the feng shui." Okay, we'll do as you say," Calvin and his mother say in unison. Calvin grabs my hand. "Wendy, accept my friend request on WeChat. You've blocked me." All right. I gently shake off his hand, feeling a bit nauseous, but still manage a smile and agree. "It's late today, Auntie. Calvin, you should rest early too, dear daughter-in-law. I'll come see you again in a few days." After seeing them off, I quickly lock the door securely. Only after confirming through the surveillance that they have left do I feel relieved to go back inside and continue packing. With only 3 days until the zombie virus outbreak, my parents and I pack all our luggage into boxes. We also confirmed tomorrow's travel plans with my grandparents, aunt, and uncle's families. Although the island lacks nothing, I pack all the usable clothes and food. I also pack some valuable jewelry and other expensive items. No, the villa is empty except for some items I'm leaving behind. Items like canned sardines, by Maui snake grass water, fishy-smelling herbs, moldy fruits, rotten vegetables, and corroded pork. These are the foods I leave for Calvin and his family. 2 days until the zombie virus outbreak. Today is the day we agreed to head to the island, planning to arrive 2 days early to avoid any unexpected situations. However, unexpected incidents still occur. As my mom and I are loading the last of the luggage onto the truck, my dad runs in from outside, panicked. "Terrible news. The news reports that there are zombies biting people on the streets. Has the outbreak started earlier than expected?" My dad gestures broadly. "Let's go. Get in the car." I help my mom into the passenger seat, then prepare to get into the cargo area. My mom grabs me, and without regard for traffic rules, we squeeze together in the passenger seat. Fortunately, we're both quite slim. My dad skillfully steers the wheel as we head towards the dock. It's about a 20-minute drive from our home to the dock, passing through several bustling districts. I nervously watch out the window. The early part of our journey is still peaceful, with people laughing and chatting, including students and office workers. I roll down the window slightly, about to remind them, but then I see a high school student suddenly curl up into a ball on the ground, convulsing. Within seconds, she springs up, her body contorting unnaturally, her face gruesomely twisted with blood-red veins bulging. Before I can react, she staggers back to her feet and, under the horrified gaze of onlookers, tackles a few fellow students walking together. People nearby scream and scatter. The speed and strength of the zombies are truly terrifying. Ordinary people stand no chance. My dad steps on the gas, accelerating forward. As my mom and I huddle together in the passenger seat, the car speeds along at over 100 kilometers per hour. Inside, the car is eerily silent. As we drive, it's like hell on earth outside, with dozens of zombies on the sidewalk nearby, continuously gnawing on people, tearing through the air, even through the car window. One could clearly hear the zombies screeching and the desperate screams of humans calling for help. I glanced at the GPS. We were just 10 minutes away from the dock. What would the situation be like there? Upon our frantic drive, we reached the dock which, fortunately, was not yet crowded. The boat lay quietly by the shore, with vague human figures inside, making us all a bit nervous. Dad drove the truck straight up to the cargo ship, then cautiously opened the door, whispering for us to follow him closely as we tiptoed towards the ship. I was so nervous I dared not breathe, observing the surroundings as I followed. The sight of my uncle's face instantly relaxed me, almost to the point of tears. Following him, I saw my aunt and uncle had already joined my grandparents in conversation. My cousins and their family were busy packing things. My cousin's parents had also come to take a break. They helped us move all the luggage onto the ship. Seeing our distracted expressions and inability to speak, they quickly asked what was wrong. Dad, without time to explain, urged, "Let's set sail now." The ship had just left the dock when we heard screams and cries for help. Looking towards the dock, we saw a group of people running towards us in panic, numbering in the hundreds. Behind them were several humanoid monsters, difficult to describe. You could tell from their appearance that they retained some human features. Unlike the zombies in The Walking Dead, perhaps because they had just turned, parts of the skin on their faces had peeled off, revealing a grotesque mix of bone and flesh, their bodies rigid like corpses, limbs bent in unnatural angles and intensity. One of them, with incredible leaping ability, jumped 3 or 4 meters high, landing on the nearest unfortunate souls, savagely biting down. I could even see blood and chunks of flesh flying. The bitten people let out hysterical screams. The screams were so piercing they didn't sound human, chilling anyone who heard them to the bone. The dock instantly turned into a living hell, with people's screams and the monsters' shrieks merging together. This was the scene I had encountered before my rebirth, and I couldn't help but tremble, which my mother noticed and gently embraced me. Fortunately, as we moved further from the dock, the horrific scene shrank to a mere. It felt like watching a movie. But I knew this was real. The sea was calm, as if we were just on an ordinary vacation. The cabin's radio broadcasted news of the horror event, just like before my rebirth, reminding everyone to stay home, stock up on food, and wait for rescue. The day after the zombie outbreak, I woke up at 10 in the morning on the soft white bed. I hadn't slept this well in days. The hotel on the island was decorated like a luxury hotel, so my room was also well appointed with a king-sized bed, luxurious and soft, with plenty of entertainment options. I changed my clothes and walked out of the room. The table was set with breakfast, sweet porridge, steaming egg pancakes, sugary frosted millet cakes, cold jellyfish salad, Szechuan pickled vegetables, and various pickles. I couldn't help but feel tempted. Grandma came out with a beaming smile. "Just heated it up, and you woke up." Everyone else went to patrol the beach. I was waiting for my treasure to wake up. Grandma is wonderful. I immediately started eating heartily. Delicious, so tasty. Yesterday, Dad had set up a duty roster for everyone, apart from my grandparents and my pregnant cousin, each group of 2 took turns patrolling the beach, monitoring the hundreds of cameras on the island, and cooking. Others are free to move about as they please. I think this arrangement is quite reasonable. The weather in February is still a bit chilly. After eating, I washed the dishes and confidently went back to lie down in bed. Looking around at the luxurious decorations of the room, I thought to myself, this doesn't feel like the end of the world at all. It's so comfortable that I almost feel guilty thinking this. I also turned on the large TV and iPad in front of the window to check the surveillance around the island. There are surveillance cameras installed in various locations across the island, a total of 200, all cleverly disguised. They're painted green to blend in with the natural vegetation. I kept adjusting the cameras, continuously checking on them, until I saw something. Isn't that the camera near my family's villa? I don't live there anymore, so it's useless. I was just thinking about removing it, then I saw several sneaky figures appear at my house, and I took a closer look. It was my ex-boyfriend Toady and his family. "Oh my, that scared me to death," said Calvin in the surveillance, carrying a huge bag and holding a sharp knife, peeking around nervously. "Keep it down." David immediately stopped him. "Quick, ring the doorbell." I saw Calvin press the doorbell at my house. Then he moved his frog-like face close to the camera and made a supposedly cool noise. "Wendy, it's me, and my family. We've come to visit you and your parents." The doorbell immediately emitted a sharp sound, and they panicked like a pot of scalded frogs, frantically scrambling. "What do we do? What do we do?" From the surveillance, I saw they quickly caught the attention of some distant zombies. A few zombies began slowly walking towards them. Calvin was the first to react. He agilely jumped onto the outer wall of my house and climbed over. David also grabbed the wall, clumsily trying to climb up. The remaining one, Lu Jinhua, who was short and quite overweight, tried to jump up but couldn't make it over the wall, just as the nearest zombie was about to pounce on her. Thankfully, David reached down and pulled her up, but his help came too late. The zombie bit firmly into her right leg, blood gushing out as Lu Jinhua screamed like a slaughtered pig. By this time, Calvin had already climbed over the wall and completely ignored his parents, running straight for my house's front door. Somehow, Lu Jinhua found the strength to swing her kitchen knife fiercely at the zombie, which looked like an old lady and moved slowly. She kicked it down hard, and it fell away. The few zombies that came were slow, jumping a few times but unable to get over the outer wall, while Calvin's family had already run towards my house's front door. In their rush, they hadn't closed it and they ran straight in, slamming the door shut behind them. I switched the surveillance to inside the villa. "Mom, I saw on TV that if you're bitten by a zombie, you have to cut off the infected area quickly to prevent infection." No, son, husband, please, if you cut off my leg, I'll be ruined," Lu Jinhua cried out, her cries even more agonized than before. "We have to be quick. Calvin, hold your mom down." "I'll do it." David had already made up his mind, taking out an axe while Calvin firmly held down Lu Jinhua. Lu Jinhua, already in poor health and having lost a lot of blood, couldn't struggle at all as Calvin pinned her down. David raised the axe, but it was too blunt and a bit rusty. The first chop didn't cut through, and he had to strike again. "Screw this pain. Stop chopping." Lu Jinhua tried to scream but Calvin covered her mouth, silencing her. After several axe blows, her leg still hadn't been severed. The flesh was a bloody, gruesome mess, and the sight was unbearable. Overwhelmed by the pain, she eventually passed out. I couldn't bear to watch any longer. Burying my head deep into the blankets, I couldn't help but let out a sneaky laugh. Soon, my phone was bombarded with calls and messages, all from Calvin using his parents' phone. He first questioned where I had gone, why I wasn't at home, and why there was no food at my place. Forget food. There was nothing at all. He then demanded that I hurry back with food, followed by a string of vulgar insults. I immediately blocked all his contact details. Looking up at the surveillance, I saw they had turned my house upside down. Unfortunately for them, there was nothing left in my house. Lu Jinhua's injured leg was wrapped in gauze, still seeping blood, sitting on the ground, eyes closed. She wailed. "You said Wendy's place had stuff. We risked coming here because of that, and now my leg is..." David pulled out a crumpled pack of cigarettes from his pocket, took one out, and smoked fiercely, silent amidst Lu Jinhua's cries. Calvin, agitated, said, "How was I supposed to know? And now her phone is unreachable." He made another call, which showed busy since I had blocked him. Instead, he started blaming his mother. "It's all your fault. We have no supplies at home. We couldn't last a few days. That's why we had to go out looking." Yes, before the reset, his family had lived without worries at my place, and even so, they had planned to wipe out my family. Lu Jinhua sharply yelled, "It's all your fault, David, always a low-level clerk, making pennies. Do you think running a household is easy?" Then she started pushing and hitting David while crying. Suddenly, David stood up and slapped Calvin. Calvin hit back just as fiercely. I watched with interest as they fought amongst themselves. Just as my dad knocked on the door to remind me it was time for lunch, the grill sizzled with roasting meat. Our whole family gathered around the table, enjoying a harmonious meal while chatting. I wrapped slightly charred pork belly seasoned with plenty of cumin and chili powder and fresh lettuce and swallowed it in one bite. The mix of greens and fatty meat was incredibly delicious. I grabbed a roasted mushroom, sipped some soup first. It was exquisitely flavorful, then slowly chewed the mushroom in my mouth. My uncle boasted about the fish he had just caught from the sea today, perfectly spicy and flavorful from the oven. We couldn't wait to reach out with our chopsticks. The skin was crispy, perfectly roasted, with the inside still tender, dipped in slightly spicy sauce. It was just right. That lunch had us all feeling pleasantly full. On the third day of the zombie outbreak, we began farming, under the guidance of our grandparents, who had ample farming experience. We first made sure the soil was nutrient-rich to ensure good plant growth. We changed into old clothes, put on hats, selected suitable land on the island for cultivation, cleared the weeds, then moved mixed fertilizers, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and fungicides from the storage, continuously turning the soil to ensure even mixing. All these efforts took us an entire day. By evening, everyone was exhausted. After washing up, I turned on the surveillance to check on the situation at home. Due to her wound, Lu Jinhua suffered from an infection. She developed a high fever, struggling to get up, and called out with her hoarse voice, "Water, water, water." However, Calvin and David showed no intention of taking care of her, sitting indifferently in the living room. They were probably running out of the food they brought from home, and now they were worried about the pile of herring cans, Hediotis diffusa water, fishy herb, and moldy fruits and vegetables they scavenged from my house. Calvin, pale from hunger, hesitated for a long time before tentatively opening a can of herring and sniffing it. He ended up running to the toilet to retch. He had always been a big eater and very picky. In school, he hardly ever ate in the cafeteria, dismissing the food as pig slop, and often insisted on eating out, of course, making me pay. Back then, I was really just a walking ATM, I sighed. After he finished retching in the bathroom, he returned to the living room, looked disdainfully at the can of herring, wanting to throw it away but not daring to. I thought it wouldn't be long before he would be willing to eat these things. He carefully took out half a loaf of bread from their suitcase, as if it were a treasure, carefully tore off a small piece, and ate it, even repeatedly licking his fingers afterward. I knew that eating made him even hungrier, but their dry food must be running out. So he carefully packed the bread back into the suitcase and swallowed hard as he looked at it. Then he ran to the kitchen to drink a lot of water, trying to stave off the hunger in this way. Meanwhile, my mother's cheerful voice came from outside my door. "Baby, your uncle caught a lot of fish again. Come and enjoy some delicious fish hot pot." Day 4 of the zombie outbreak. Continuing yesterday's work, we selected some easy-to-grow, short-cycle seeds, onions, ginger, garlic, cilantro, sweet potato leaves, spinach, lettuce, cabbage, small cabbage, mustard greens, crown daisy, cucumbers, chili peppers, etc. We planted them one by one in the soil and watered them thoroughly, and the morning passed in this way. My uncle, the fishing champion, along with my cousin, caught a lot of fish again. We couldn't possibly eat all these fish, so my father and the others built a fish pond to keep the surplus fish. In the afternoon, we cut the potatoes we bought, still covered in soil, into pieces and buried them in the ground. Potatoes, being tuberous, if successfully grown, could be expanded for planting, providing a good staple food if wheat and rice didn't grow well. Day 5 of the zombie outbreak. The saying "many hands make light work" is true, especially with the guidance of my grandparents, who had decades of farming experience. More than 10 of us collaborated to continue reclaiming wasteland and planting. We planted a large area of pasture for the rabbits and sheep. We also planted rice and wheat, to feed us and the poultry. Although we had enough food stored to last us several years, we aim not just to be consumers in the apocalypse but producers as well. Day 8 of the zombie outbreak. We planted various types of fruit trees on the perimeter, peach, apple, bayberry, mango, and others, as a reserve of fruits, and when these trees grow tall, they can also provide camouflage for our fortress. These days, everyone became busy, dealing with pests, fertilizing, caring for livestock, and patrolling. In addition to these tasks, we also set aside time to exercise. My uncle taught us various self-defense techniques, set up targets in an open field, and we practiced shooting and crossbow archery. I was busy until late at night. It was only when I lay in bed, getting ready to sleep, that I remembered to check the surveillance to see how my ex-boyfriend Calvin and his family were doing. When I first turned on the surveillance, I got a shock. It looked like they had all turned into zombies. Upon closer inspection, I realized how drastically Calvin had changed in just a few days. His cheeks were sunken, his complexion ghostly pale, a stark contrast to the handsome young man he was just days ago. I watched as he weakly crawled to the table and shakily picked up a can of sardines he once despised. With a spoon, he took a bite, closed his eyes, and swallowed. I could see his throat move as he fought the urge to vomit, but he forced himself to keep it down. Then he hobbled to the kitchen and gulped down a large glass of water. Calvin's mother, Lydia, was in worse shape. She was delirious with a high fever, shouting incoherently. Her cries, along with the eerie hissing and scratching noises I could hear through the surveillance, had attracted the attention of zombies. I switched the camera to view outside the villa. A few zombies had already stealthily infiltrated and were at the doorstep. More and more gathered, drawn by the scent of blood and Lydia's screams, and they began to repeatedly and forcefully slam against the villa's entrance door. Perhaps due to extreme hunger and delayed reactions, Calvin and his father David noticed the zombie attack later than I did. For the first time, I saw sheer panic on Calvin's face. The sounds of zombies banging and howling terrified him to tears. He curled up in a corner of the room, shivering. As if hiding could make him invisible to the zombies, although David was trembling with fear, he managed to regain composure and quickly gagged Lydia to stop her from screaming. Then, I overheard a quiet conversation between father and son in their room. Calvin, crying, said, "Dad, they're gathering in numbers. What if they break the door down? I'm so scared." David, gritting his teeth, replied, "If it comes to it, we might have to throw your mother out to draw the zombies away. It looks like she's beyond help anyway." Calvin wiped his nose and added, "But that might draw even more zombies. It would be better if Mom could run outside herself to lead them away." Hearing this, Lydia suddenly came to her senses, tore off the cloth from her mouth, and lunged at David, crying and hitting him. "You heartless beast, after decades of marriage, after all I've done for this family, this is how you treat me." David disdainfully pushed her away, letting her fall heavily to the ground. As the saying goes, a woman is like clothing, but preserving my son and my own lives to carry on our family line is what matters most. I recalled that before my rebirth, Lydia had once praised David as a man of great deeds. I wonder what she thinks now. Calvin also scolded, "Mom, just stop it." Knowing she was no match for the two, Lydia returned to the bed, no longer daring to cry out loud, only silently shedding tears. In reality, zombies are not that easily able to break through the security door of my house. It wasn't such an urgent situation, but their selfish nature had already made them desperate to sacrifice others to save themselves. Day 9 of the zombie outbreak. I woke up early to a refreshing sea breeze on the island, the air crisp and clean, carrying a hoe. I walked through the fields, feeling lighthearted. The seeds we had planted were already sprouting, the vegetables growing particularly fast. Full of hope, these would not only serve as our food but also feed the chickens and pigs. The wheat was sprouting too, and the chicks and ducklings seemed to have grown a bit. Calvin discovered the surveillance camera I had installed in the living room, just as I was intently watching. He suddenly brought his face close to the camera lens, his gaunt, skeletal face looked terrifying, his protruding eyeballs pressing against the lens, chillingly staring as if he was staring right at me through the screen. "Wendy, are you watching me? Are you laughing at us?" Startled, I dropped my iPad onto the bed. "You did this on purpose. You knew something was going to happen, didn't you? You took everything. They left this pile of trash to starve us to death." He seemed to use up most of his strength saying this, panting like an old man, his eyes fiercely fixed on me. "Wait until I find where you are. I won't let you get away." After saying that, he slammed the monitor to the ground and vented his frustration by stomping on the camera. My iPad screen went black, and a sense of unease overwhelmed me. A typhoon arrived, causing the temperature to drop drastically. I've never remembered the South being this cold. My bed is next to the window, though it's still afternoon. The sky has completely darkened due to the dense clouds. Outside, the fierce wind and heavy rain violently beat against the windows, making a dull thump, thump, thump and hoo sound. Small trees were uprooted, swirling in the air. Dust flew everywhere as the typhoon roared chaotically, like hundreds of zombies shrieking, evoking a feeling of unrest and fear. We all put on down jackets, yet the cold felt bone-chilling. We had no choice but to huddle in our own beds, clutching our blankets. I found some heat packs I had stored earlier and distributed them to everyone. Once attached to our bodies, they immediately radiated warmth, which felt much better. The news also reported the typhoon, advising everyone to take precautions, block any typhoon-damaged doors and windows to prevent zombies from entering. It was indeed a case of misfortune not coming singly. The situation at Calvin's place was even worse. Living near the sea, his living room's large windows were completely shattered by the typhoon, allowing the rain and wind to rush in, adding insult to injury with the cold. Calvin wrapped himself in all the clothes and blankets he could find, yet he still shivered from the cold. As the typhoon wreaked havoc, the signal also became unstable. By nightfall, it got even colder. None of us wanted to leave our beds, but then Dad suggested, "Let's have hot pot, soon." A dual-sided hot pot was set up, with spicy hot pot base on the right and chicken soup on the left. Once it boiled, a steaming bowl of chicken soup made us feel a lot warmer. We then added frozen beef, pork, chicken, luncheon meat, sliced potatoes and sweet potatoes, fresh white radish and yam slices, and various greens into the spicy side. Enjoying a warm meal, I picked a piece of beef from the spicy side. It seemed there was a bit too much chili this time. After a few bites, I couldn't stop panting, my tongue numb. But I couldn't resist and took another piece. As I ate, my nose even began to sweat slightly. Finally, we cooked some wide noodles in the chicken soup. Each of us had a bowl, and I added some chili. It was so delicious, I couldn't help but have 2 bowls. We felt much warmer after eating and just sprawled on the sofa together. Still no signal. We watched Empresses in the Palace together, and despite the howling wind outside, it didn't feel cold inside at all. Day 20 of the zombie outbreak. Calvin's family disappeared. After the typhoon, the weather gradually warmed up, and the signal returned to normal. As I munched on crispy, spicy seaweed snacks, I turned on the surveillance to check and found the house empty and seemingly ransacked, a total mess. I felt very uneasy and quickly reviewed the surveillance footage from a few days back. Thankfully, the intermittent recordings also came through. The timestamp showed 2 days ago. After the typhoon, a gang of about a dozen strong, menacing men armed with clubs and knives stormed into my house. I recognized them from viral videos online. They were notorious for their brutal home invasions, murders, and rapes. They left a trail of destruction in their wake, prying open drawers and smashing glassware. Kneeling before these intruders were Calvin and David, weeping bitterly, pleading their innocence. "We really don't have anything. We aren't the owners here. We just came to take shelter after everything collapsed." Both were visibly injured, with Calvin looking worse, his face swollen and bloodied, missing a front tooth, losing patience. One of the robbers kicked Calvin so hard that he curled up in pain on the floor, unable to rise. The screen then went black temporarily, and when the signal returned, it showed David repeatedly bowing and begging, "Please take us with you, we have nowhere else to go." Calvin, crying, joined in the pleading. The robbers appeared well-fed and equipped, each carrying long knives, clubs, and crossbows, a sign of their preparedness for the apocalypse. The leader, clad in leather, listened silently, desperate. David clung to his leg, pleading for mercy and even stooped to wiping his shoes with his sleeve. A whisper from an associate made the leader reluctantly nod, but he pointed at the frail Liu Jinhua and declared, "She can't come." Grateful, David, with a cold indifference, urged, "She'll only slow us down. Just leave her here to fend for herself." Calvin nodded in agreement, displaying a chilling lack of humanity. Hearing this, Jinhua tried to protest but could barely speak. With a sudden burst of energy, she lunged at David, who pushed her away so forcefully she crashed through the living room's glass door and fell outside. A loud thud followed by the excited shrieks of zombies signaled her grim fate. From my surveillance, I heard Jinhua's agonizing screams. She was being devoured just as I had been in my previous life. David and Calvin, seemingly distressed by the sounds, covered their ears. Their suffering was short-lived, however, as they soon gathered their belongings and left with the robbers, without any intention of retrieving Jinhua's body. Shaking my head, I doubted following the robbers was a wise choice. But they were clearly desperate. I then turned off the screen, planning to feed the chickens since my cousin's wife was expecting, and more poultry would be needed for her postnatal care. Day 83 of the zombie outbreak. From my vantage point at the base, I scanned the island with a high-precision telescope. It was spring, and we were busy planting seeds, hoping to grow more grain despite having enough food. Suddenly, something at sea caught my eye, a boat. I zoomed in, trying to see how many were aboard, and to my shock, recognized Calvin and David among a few others who had previously robbed my house. My heart raced. Were they heading to our island? Did they know our situation? What was the state of their weaponry now? I quickly informed my family to take shelter back at the base and kept watching, reminding myself to stay calm as sweat soaked through my clothes. Family members quickly gathered together. In my heart, I estimated that they were still a few kilometers away from us. However, to the naked eye, the small island's conditions might not be noticeable. We had distributed weapons, and after some time training, each of us had become proficient in using handguns. If they landed on the island, we were ready for a fight. My cousin showed a pained expression. Her due date was approaching. Her parents and her aunt, who is a doctor, hurried to help her downstairs. We began to work together intensively, dividing tasks. Some were responsible for remote sniping, others took my cousin and our grandparents to the safety of the basement, while a few continued to observe through binoculars. Through the binoculars, I closely watched the small boat. Calvin seemed to be doing okay these past few months. He had gained weight and looked healthier, his lips red and teeth white, presenting a handsome appearance, though he seemed listless. David, accompanying him, seemed to respond to some call, stood up, walked to the cabin, and knelt down, massaging a gang member's back in a flattering manner. Another, more muscular man, who seemed to be a minor leader, got up and roughly grabbed Calvin, unbuttoning his pants as he directed him towards a small room in the boat. Calvin looked like a dead fish, suggesting such occurrences were frequent. Should we be watching this? I quickly glanced at my cousin, also on observation duty, intending to alert her to the inappropriate content. Instead, she spoke seriously. "Look, another ship is approaching." Indeed, not far from their boat, a luxurious cruise ship appeared, quite different from the cramped vessel. The people on the small boat quickly noticed the cruise ship, which seemed deserted and aimlessly drifting at sea. The cruise looked infinitely better than their crowded boat, and likely contained supplies left by previous occupants. The leader gathered everyone, apparently planning to send people to check it out. He pointed at Calvin and David. David seemed reluctant, but after being scolded by others, he didn't dare refuse. They armed themselves, donned life jackets, and swam with difficulty towards the cruise ship. David, not a good swimmer, swallowed several mouthfuls of water. Once at the cruise ship, they struggled to climb aboard and started cautiously exploring. As they were investigating, the door to a cabin behind them burst open, and several zombies emerged. It was a zombie ship. Despite being young, Calvin reacted quickly. He pushed David forward, using him as a shield against the zombies. David, caught off guard, was bitten harshly on the arm. He kicked away the zombie biting him, showing an expression of intense pain, clutching his bleeding arm as he staggered forward. Blood trailed behind him as more zombies chased after him from the cabin. In desperation, David called out to Calvin, seemingly pleading for help with the pursuing zombies. Calvin did not respond. He jumped off the cruise ship without looking back and swam toward the small boat. Zombies, deterred by water, did not follow. David attempted to run to the side of the ship, but it was too late. A zombie tackled him from behind. Using all his strength and his uninjured hand, he managed to kill the zombie with a dagger. However, another zombie bit his leg, and he could no longer free himself. Soon, more zombies swarmed over him, biting from all angles, pinning him down. He struggled underneath them, crawling. His leg continued to bleed as he cried out, calling for Calvin. Attracted by David's blood, more zombies surged out from the cabin, quickly overwhelming him until he was no longer visible. The cruise ship was overrun with zombies. We saw hundreds. The pirates abandoned their plan to board the ship and continued towards the small island with Calvin. I heard them mention Small Island and Farmstay. It seemed they were headed there. Calvin appeared unharmed, casually resting on the deck. However, I noticed a small scratch on his back from a zombie, which he concealed by wearing a jacket. As night fell, some slept in the cabin beds while others simply laid out on the deck. "Don't come over," I heard until the dim, early light of dawn around 5 or 6 a.m. Calvin huddled in a corner of the deck, shivering under a blanket. A bald man suddenly woke up, approached Calvin, and tried to pull him up for some work. Calvin clutched the blanket over his face, refusing to move. Angered, the bald man cursed, lifted Calvin by the neck, and slapped him harshly. Choked by the man, Calvin seemed to faint but quickly turned his head and bit the man's hand. The bald man's scream woke everyone on the ship. Before they could react, Calvin and the newly zombified bald man began a rampage. The zombified Calvin, with exceptional fighting skills, leaped up, dodged an arrow, and pounced on the leader, tearing at him. He then quickly turned to the leader's deputy, evaded an attack, and tackled him. The bald man, who had just been bitten, also turned his eyes blood red and lunged at his comrades. The confined space of the ship, perhaps due to their robust bodies, accelerated their zombification, quickly turning into chaos. After a fierce battle, none survived, turning the ship into a vessel of zombies. On the island, we breathed a sigh of relief and informed our families to dismantle the arrangements. Gradually, we resumed our normal productive lives. My cousin also gave birth to a healthy nephew. The yield of rice and wheat was better than expected. We saved a portion and used the rest as seeds for the next planting. The hens hatched chicks, doubling our flock. The plump piglets also grew up. 508 days after the zombie outbreak, I walked along the beach with my nephew, occasionally pressing my cheek against his soft, chubby face, which he enjoyed, babbling happily in response. Suddenly, his little hand pointed towards the sea. Following his tiny finger, I saw, far off at sea, a large ship approaching.